Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. I've been meaning to watch that. I am your host Monica, and guys, it's a new week, new topic, new guest every single week. And this week we have a brand new guest with us here today, and I'm gonna pass it on to him and let him introduce himself to you guys.
Hi, Monica, and hello, esteemed listeners of I've been meaning to watch that. My name's Josh Bradley. I co-host a podcast with my two friends called Serious Film People, where we watch movies, usually those nominated for Oscars, of which the movies we'll be talking about today do not qualify for yet. But I'm extremely excited to be here, and thank you for having me, Monica.
Yes, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. I am very happy to have you on. A lot of you guys, if you watch a lot of, I guess, like film analysis on TikTok, then you probably have come across Josh's podcast clips.
That's a generous assumption, but it's a possibility, I guess.
I mean, that's how I came across your TikToks,
That
because,
is true.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, because
The
I.
algorithm fed me to you, but
Mhm.
we'll see how many of the listeners have had a similar experience, I guess.
I feel like a lot of them probably have. So,
Okay.
yeah. Don't act surprised. I mean,
I know what the numbers are. Like I know how many people see my TikTok, so like the odds are not in my favor. But again, I appreciate it. It's very generous of you.
yeah. It's there's still a possibility. So you know what,
Sure. Yeah.
guys, if you haven't had the chance to check out his podcast or his TikToks, the links will be in the description down below. He hosts it with two of his friends, and they're very
Mhm.
funny, informative podcasts. And I'm really happy to have Josh on here today, because today we're going to be talking about Mean Girls, but we're not going to just be talking about Mean Girls, but we're going to be talking about Mean Girls 2004 film, Mean Girls, the Broadway musical, and then Mean Girls, the 2024 movie musical, which is the adaptation of the Broadway musical, which is a turducken of
Yes.
adaptations that we are starting
All
with
things
us
Mean
today.
Girls. Yes.
Yes, it kind of does feel like all things Mean Girls um, today, which I am super happy about, because Mean Girls is such a fun film, and upon like doing like research for the movie for this recording, I was just like, I don't know, I was kind of like taken aback by how long it was since the film has like come out. You know what I
About 20
mean?
years. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, literally 20 years. So I feel like maybe this is like the one time where adaptation, it still feels like kind of relevant, but it's a long enough time where a reboot makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we can talk about this when we get to the movie musical adaptation. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember when the trailer came out, one of the like texts during the trailer was "This is not your mom's Mean Girls," which I found to
Yeah.
be very offensive for someone of my age who was like in like middle school, high school when the first one came out.
Oh my
But
gosh.
to be honest, though, it has been 20 years, so there is like a generational thing happening here. So there may be some truth to "This isn't your mom's Mean Girls,"
Mm-hmm.
which hurts my feelings, but maybe a little truth to that.
Yeah, maybe. But before we get into Mean Girls and all these Mean Girls, we're gonna dive into our first segment, which is Media Mania, where we talk about new releases and entertainment news. And there are a few new releases that I did want to talk about. One interesting thing that I noticed, because I was kind of looking through the new releases, and I realized that there is going to be a Turning Red re-release in
Hmm.
February. And I was kind of like, huh, that's interesting. Because Turning Red was one of the films that came out, I believe it was last year. And it came out on streaming and in theaters. But it was mainly that people could watch it in theaters. And I believe that they're doing the re release to try and get people to like get interested in the movie and just watch it in theaters, which I find interesting, because there are actually a lot of re-releases in February. There's also the re-release of Amelie and Paprika, which I
Mm.
didn't know about because my local theater has been advertising that, and so I'm kind of excited
Hmm.
because I haven't seen the movie yet, just because I want to see it in theaters. But I
Have
think
you have you seen Amelie before? Is that what you said? Amelie?
I haven't seen Amelie and I haven't seen
Okay.
Paprika
I
either.
haven't seen Paprika, but Amelie is
Yeah.
just incredibly delightful. Just
Okay.
absolutely delightful. Like I can't really recommend it enough, honestly.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
But to your point, like Turning Red isn't the only movie that even Pixar's putting back in theaters. Isn't Soul going back in theaters? I think in the next month or so as well.
I
Which
believe.
like
I think there are like three
Soul,
movies.
yeah, like Soul was released in 2020, like over Christmas, so that was um not a whole lot of theaters were open, like at least fewer than when Turning Red came out. So like part of me thinks they're just trying to, number one, fill out the theatrical window because of the strikes. Like theaters, studios just don't have as much to put out right now because of the strikes last year, so they're trying to put something out. And I
Hmm.
guess to your point about Turning Red, like get more people to experience the theaters again, I guess.
Yeah, that does make sense because a lot of movies have been delayed or just
Yeah.
pushed off that were supposed to come out this
there
month.
there wasn't really any work being done for a good bulk of last year, so they just yeah.
Yeah.
Well, which I think I actually have a comment about that for the Mean Girls movie musical, but I'll save that for when we get to that discussion topic. Yeah.
Yeah, I did have a friend of mine like they weren't surprised really, but I think it was a surprise to me how much the movies are being pushed back because I think Mickey 17 was a Bong Joon Ho film starring uh, Robert
Rob Pattinson.
Pattinson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that movie's been pushed off indefinitely, and I was just like, oh no, what's
Yeah.
that?
I don't know what to make of that because I think it was supposed to be like a spring release, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're holding on to it to be more of like a fall release for like an Oscar push or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or if David Zaslav, the head of HBO and Warner Brothers, is just doing his Zaslav thing and holding on to movies. Maybe someone else is going to scoop up and distribute it instead. But that was worrisome to me when they took that off the release schedule
Mm-hmm.
and didn't give a new one. That was
Yeah,
scary
yeah,
because I
it
want to see it.
is.
Show me the movie. I want to see it real bad.
Right. I mean, I want to see the movie as well because I feel like it's one of those movies that like it looks very interesting, but I really just have to like sit down and watch it. That way, I know
Yeah.
what this movie's about. Like, I can't tell what it's about just from the trailer.
They're very tight-lipped. Is there even a trailer out already? Because if there is, I haven't watched it. But I know they're being pretty lock and key about plot details. Yeah,
I don't think
Bong
there's a
Joon Ho and Robert Pattinson. That's all they're saying, really.
yeah. I don't think there's a trailer out really. I don't know if it's a teaser, but there was like something. Maybe it's just like that one photo.
There's a poster. Yeah, the poster of Rob
Yeah.
Pattinson in like a. It looks like a tanning bed. I'm sure it's not, but that's just what it looks like to me. So, yeah, I don't know. And Stephen Yeun's in that. Recent Emmy winner and Golden Globe winner.
Mm-hmm.
Toni Collette's in that. Beloved. Mark Ruffalo's in that. So, it's gonna be great, probably. But I just need to see it. So let us see your movies, Warner Brothers.
Let us see your movies. Oh my gosh. Let us see your movies. Let us watch your TV shows. How about that?
Yes,
Because
that too. Yeah.
Warner Brothers has been canceling just about every original show they have. They've canceled Our Flag Means Death. They've canceled
Hmm.
Rap Shit. They've canceled The Flight Attendant. And
Yes.
there's just been one after the other. And it's really weird because it's obviously driving a lot of TV fans away from entertainment or this form of entertainment because I can't get invested in a show that's only 2 seasons long. I need
Well,
like something. You know what I mean?
here's a little dirty secret of the business. Most
Hmm.
TV shows have contract renegotiations for season 3, and the studios
Yeah.
just don't want to pay up. So there's canceling shows after season 2, and it sucks. I completely agree. It's hard to get invested, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone tweet the other day like a photo compilation of different sitcoms reaching their 100th episode, which used to be like a big benchmark for like syndication purposes. So like the studio like buys you a cake and says congratulations on your 100th episode. How many shows made in the last 5 years have made it to 100 episodes? It's just such a relic of the past, and like we used to be a proper country. We used to have like TV shows with longevity.
Literally, Better Call Saul just ended with
Ah,
7 seasons with
yeah.
53 Emmy noms
Mm-hmm.
and no
A new record.
wins.
New record. Yeah. A very sad record. Yeah.
It is sad. It's sad
Well,
because I was looking at the show and I was like, I actually haven't watched Better Call Saul, but I have watched Breaking Bad. I was
mhm.
like, this show should be eating this up. Like, where is Bob Odenkirk's Emmy? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's tough that he never won an Emmy. I think. If you look at what it was up against, a lot of years,
Mm-hmm.
most recently it lost to Succession in a lot of categories.
Yeah.
Like that sucks for Better Call Saul, but at the same time you're like, well, it's Succession, so
Mm-hmm.
fine. And earlier on, he was losing Emmys to like, John Hamm playing Don Draper, which again, tough beat for Bob Odenkirk, but it's Don Draper. So like, what are you gonna do? But then also like some like the middle seasons for Better Call Saul lost the Emmy for Best Drama to like the later Game of Thrones seasons, like the bad Game of Thrones seasons, and you're like, what are we doing? Like, this sucks. Like, it's easy to accept their losses to Succession. It's harder to accept their losses to like, I don't know, Game of Thrones season 7 nobody liked. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Did you watch the Emmys?
Um, I don't watch award shows in full.
Of course you don't, because nobody does. You're younger than me, and like people my age sometimes do. I watch the Oscars obsessively every year. Emmys I can kind of take or leave, but at least I threw them on. But yeah, live TV is dying in general. I don't know if you're aware of that, but award shows are a casualty of that.
Well, I could just go on Twitter and figure out. I'm actually gonna be honest with you. I didn't know the Emmys were happening. Because in my head, I'm like, the Emmys happened in September, right? What's going on?
Yeah, it was a surprise to me too. My wife texted me on like Monday when I was at work. Hey, do you know the Emmys were on tonight? And I was like, no. what are you talking about?
What?
But they were delayed because of the strikes.
Right,
in case listeners don't realize that they are normally in the fall, like you just said. They're like Oscars in the spring, Emmys in the fall. There's usually 6 months betwixt. And this year, there's like a month and a half. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that was very interesting to me. But I feel like that fits better with the award cycle. You know what I mean? Like after we already had like the Golden Globes, and then we had the SAG Awards before the Golden Globes, and the Emmys kind of after that. Yeah, it just it fits better. You know what I mean? It makes more sense.
I guess, but at the same time, like as someone who does like obsess over the Oscars, I do know that some people feel there is like award season fatigue because you get the Golden Globes, and Golden Globes are usually early January. They're always the first, and then you get the Critics' Choice and SAG and this, that, and the other, and then the Oscars. And like by the time you get to the Oscars, you've seen these same movies and these same performers at award shows on red carpets giving speeches for like 3 months, and like some people are a little sick. I'm not sick of them, but some people are sick of them. And so the Emmys, I guess being in the fall, kind of breaks that up a little bit. So I see your point, kind of grouping them all, but I think there's also an advantage to separating them. What I find weird about the Emmys is that I never really understand the eligibility window that they're like awarding. Like the Oscars, it's simple. Like they have the year, like the calendar year is your beginning and ending of the awards window. So anything released in 2023 will be honored at the Oscars in the spring of 2024, in the first couple months of 2024. The Emmys are different, where like the show is usually in like September, but the window is like from June to June. So like this most recent Emmys that happened like this past week or whatever, that was like The Bear season 1, even though The Bear season 2 aired like 6 months ago. So I don't know. It's going to be confusing when next year at the Emmys, The Bear also wins every award again, even though it hasn't been on for a while. So yeah, I don't know what to do with the Emmys, but they're there.
Yeah, I did find that confusing as well. After I like did a little bit of digging and I figured that out, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess that makes sense because we did miss that Emmys. And honestly, like the only thing I'm hoping for in the upcoming Emmys where we do honor The Bear season 2, I would like to see oh my gosh, I forgot the actress's name. Hold on.
Wait, Ayo Edebiri or somebody else?
No. I love Ayo. I'm actually very glad that she won and that she has been getting her awards this season. And I'm very happy because she has been deemed the People's Princess, which she obviously deserves.
Yeah.
I really want Lisa Colin Zayas to get an Emmy, like a Best Supporting Emmy, because her arc in season 2 was so heartwarming and honestly like very inspiring to see her arc compared to Ibra's arc. How like he's kind of like an old dog, you can't really teach him new tricks, and she's someone who like was at first kind of apprehensive to the change, and now she really is embracing it, and you can see like it's making her better. I would love to see her get supporting, but it might be Abby Elliott who would like win. Which I do love her performance as Natalie. I think she's really fun.
I like her a lot too. But to your point, like especially in season 2, all of the arcs are pretty
Mm-hmm.
incredible. Cousin Richie's arc in season 2 is my favorite. Um, the episode Forks is like my favorite episode of TV
Oh
I've
my
seen in a long
gosh.
time. And
So
the
good.
needle drop that I won't spoil towards the end of that episode, like I cry when I think about it. It's so good.
It's good.
Um, yeah, but Marcus's arc is great when he goes to was it
Yes.
Netherlands or Denmark or something? I don't remember where he goes, but he
S-
meets Will Poulter and like trains
Yes.
up, and that's so good. And like you said, Abby Elliott's so good, and just yeah, everyone. It's a really great show. Like I can't
I
watch the bear if you watch the bear.
I wanted to ask you. I'm probably going to ask like a few people who are going to be coming on the podcast, so you're not going to be the only person who gets this question. But a lot of people who watch The Bear want Sydney and Carmine end up together, and me
No,
personally, I don't. Okay, thank you,
no,
God,
no,
thank
no.
you.
They had that. Well, first of all, maybe I'm being a little bit influenced by the real life performers because, like, on red carpets at the Golden Globes and the Emmys, like people keep bringing up Jeremy Allen White's recent, very popular Calvin Klein
Mm-hmm.
ad campaign, and
Yeah.
like Ayo Edebiri is clearly very like disgusted is the wrong word, but she's like
Right. That's
politely answering like, "Hey, that's my brother, so
yeah.
I don't care to
We
see him in
work
his
together.
sexy underwear." Yeah, that's my coworker is what she
Yeah.
kept saying over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, Sydney and Carmi did have like a moment under a table late in season 2 that was you might be able to read into a little bit, but I don't think they should. That's an ill-advised
Mm-hmm.
arc, I think. So maybe stay away
Yeah.
from that. Is my opinion.
I do have to say, a lot of people on TikTok that I follow, which mainly is usually like black women, they were mainly saying that like a lot of people don't believe that unambiguously black women don't get the credit of being a love interest and they're seen as like the best friend. So a lot of people who
Mm,
deny Sydney and Carmi's like connection or the possibility of them dating, they don't feel that way because they feel like Ayo Edebiri doesn't fit into like the what they perceive to be a love interest. And I completely understand that point because people feel the same way about the Percy Jackson series, with the new Annabeth, and they feel like, oh well, she's a best friend. What makes you think they're gonna end up together? It's like Perkabeth is a
hmm
very real thing, and it's gonna happen in that series. You can't stop it, okay? And for me, like with Sydney and Carmi, I understand where people are coming from, but it's so clear to me that they're not interested in each other romantically because Carmi works at the beef because he has to. Like he is tied to it from his like brother's death and he is trying to redeem himself from what happened in New York. And Sydney is doing it cuz it's her childhood dream. She loves to cook, she loves to be a chef. This is literally her calling. Like I see it in her. This is something she wants to do. She has such like a hunger to make this work and to help the people that also work in the restaurant. So she is just on top of it. And we see it clearly in season 2 because Sydney is a person who's out there making it happen and making moves. And I'm all for you taking a break and like finding your little romance, summer romance, that's fine. But if it's taking you away from your job, from the place you're supposed to be running, then it's a problem. And also, he was locked in a freezer for like most of the season finale.
Yeah,
And the one thing people asked him to do was get the freezer door fixed. That was the one
yeah,
thing you had to do. And one thing that Sydney was not going to do is do your work or do your job for you. We all have
yeah.
our responsibilities. She took care of her responsibility. Cousin took care of his responsibility, and
Oh
you're supposed
yeah.
to do the one thing that was assigned to you, and you didn't do that. And now you're stuck
And
in
he
a
suffered
freezer.
from it, and the restaurant suffered for it too. Um, I mean, don't you think that they're more setting up Sydney to be like Marcus clearly likes Sydney,
Yes.
and that might be as it currently stands, as of the most recent season, that might be more of a one-sided crush than an actual
Mm-hmm.
romance. But I feel like if Sydney gets a romantic interest, I feel like they're kind of priming us for Marcus, but more so than Carmi. But maybe I'm misreading. I don't
Also,
know.
Marcus and Sydney's motivations align better. You know what I mean? Like this is the second time Carmi is choked
Yeah,
that we've seen on the show. Like season 3, the restaurant's gonna be in full swing. So like, is Carmi gonna be able to bring it, or is he gonna drop the ball again? you know.
Well, if and when he drops the ball, I think it's going to be Sydney that's going to have to pick up the pieces and like make things work
Exactly.
with or without him. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think Sydney wants to be Carmi, a better version of Carmi, but not be with
Yeah.
Carmi. I mean, that's what seems clear to me. But again, maybe I'm wrong.
It's very clear that she was looking to Carmi as kind of like an inspiration, which is why she
Yeah,
was like
mentor.
so,
Yeah,
yeah, and she was
yeah.
so green in season one. And now
Oh
in
yeah,
season two, she's like, I'm taking all that earnest and all that energy and I'm putting it to action, you know?
yeah. Yeah.
And,
Well, everyone was great in season one, and like that's kind of what made what made season two so great is like
mm-hmm,
everyone from Marcus to the cook who you mentioned, whose name I can't think of right now, the older woman, and
mm-hmm,
cousin, like they all stepped up and like it went from a sandwich shop to like a fine dining Michelin star kind of restaurant, and
mm-hmm.
they all had to learn how to do that, but they did. Good show.
Yeah, honestly, great show. And I'm very, very happy that this show is getting so much love
Yeah.
and so many people are watching it because it's one of those shows that is actually very, very good. And I feel confident to like recommend it to people. They're like, is it actually
Oh
good?
yeah.
It's like, listen, man, just go watch it, okay?
Worth the hype. Yeah, worth the
It's
hype for sure.
it's really worth the hype. But it's not a comedy,
Okay,
you
that
know?
was gonna be my next question. Is where are you at on the comedy course? Yeah, my next
Nothing's
question.
funny in that show.
That's bullshit. It's a really funny show. I think it's very funny.
It's a very
It's
stressful show.
it's stressful. Yes, it's funny but
Yes.
very stressful. Yeah, it's funny. I think that it's weird that maybe not weird, but like that Succession was in drama. It's a very funny drama, and The Bear is in
Yeah.
comedy. It's a very dramatic comedy. And watching those two side by side and saying that one's drama, one's a comedy is, like I get it. Like
Hmm.
I'd probably categorize them the same way if you asked me to, but they're both kind of have one foot on each line. I think.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you on that. It's been a while since I've watched The Bear. I kind of do want to rewatch it just because it's in the news and everybody's talking
Hmm.
about it again and like I might as well just rewatch it. But for me The Bear is funny at times, but the main point of it is that how stressful the show is. Like each episode it just heightens and heightens and heightens. And I feel like season one, I almost like felt like I was losing my mind when it came to like the pre-ordering situation
Yeah,
on
yeah,
like
yeah,
the app that's supposed to be like DoorDash. And I was
yeah.
watching, I was sitting there watching. I was like, oh my gosh, bro! I would literally walk out the restaurant. Like, what is he
Well,
doing?
I think that's the episode. Maybe I'm confusing two different episodes in season one, but I think that's the episode that's like all in one shot. Like the
Mm-hmm.
entire episode is one continuous shot, and holy shit, that was stressful. And like the filmmaking really matched the story being told in terms of everyone being on edge and like everything has to be timed perfectly right, and it's just like a Swiss watch in that kitchen, and also the filmmaking is a Swiss watch too. So that was very stressful to watch. To your point.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Um, other news, there's been a lot of filming updates in regards to, I guess, Marvel stuff. Daredevil Born Again is resuming production fairly soon. Hugh Jackman is starting to work out for Wolverine. Jeffrey Wright, who has been doing press for American Fiction, has been giving like updates about Batman 2. He said he gave a quote to the press saying, "I'm being patient, letting Matt Reeves do his thing, which is going to be magical and wonderful." So there are obviously things in motion right now for you know
When is this
for
going to air? When's this episode dropping?
it's dropping on the 27th.
Okay, so by this point, Jeffrey Wright is probably an Oscar nominee. So Oscar nominee Jeffrey Wright for
It's
American Fiction. Yeah,
it is possible.
probably. I say probably.
I'm going to be so honest with you, and like I don't want to say this. I won't be surprised if American Fiction gets snubbed.
It will be in picture and adapted screenplay and actor minimum, I think, for nominations. I say
I don't know about actor if I'm being honest.
he,
I don't
yeah,
know
he
because
he's maybe like running fourth or fifth. So like if somebody comes in and surprises, he may be a casualty of that. But we'll see.
because the way that it's looking, at least to me, with this Oscar race, it seems like American Fiction and The Color Purple are kind of like battling out for like the movie of color, So one of them is gonna get a nom, and I feel like because The Color Purple is produced by Oprah, it's already getting the Best Picture nomination. You know, like she's been doing this whole press tour. They've been on the cover of her magazine. They've been doing the
Mhm.
panels. They've been doing the photo shoots. Oprah's like, listen, I'm coming to this
I
award show. I need to get something. All right, y'all not finna play with
I'm
me.
leaving here something. Yeah.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
um, I'm prepared to be wrong, but if I were a betting man, which I sometimes am,
Mm-hmm.
and people listening to this will know if I'm right or wrong, I say American Fiction will definitely be in Best Picture as a nominee. Color Purple probably won't be, but it might be. It might sneak in.
I
I'm
I
hedging my
think
bets.
I think Color Purple should is at least gonna get a nomination for something in regards to the song category, obviously. And I feel like Best Picture is like just throwing a bone out there. It's just kind of like, hey, you guys may not get a acting noms, but guess what?
Danielle
You,
Brooks. Danielle Brooks could get in for supporting
I,
actress.
I would like her to.
Yeah.
I would like for her to, but you
I'm
know.
sorry I opened this can of worms because again, because people listening already know what happened, and we're just like hypothesizing of what might happen in a few days for us, but what happened a few days ago for the
Oh
listeners.
my
So
god.
we can get off of this and be like, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. It's it's okay. You know, award season. It's a fun, goofy, silly time,
Yeah.
and I feel like this award season for me is especially different because I'm seeing a lot of actors that I love up for not even like actors, but just people that I genuinely admire up for the chance to be like in the room, like in a
Hmm.
room that they were not privy to before. And you know, I when I say that I mean like people like Fantasia because she is
Yeah.
someone that I've admired for a long time. I love her singing, I love her story. I truly do admire her work, and for her to like get this far is so amazing and she deserves it. And because of how award season works, I'm just kind of like I don't want to get too excited. You know, I don't want to
Don't want your heart broken. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
no,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to like underestimate the film, of course not. But at the same time, I know how this works, and we can't have a Moonlight every year. You know what I mean? So like, we just have to be realistic about these things. Like, there is a possibility that Oppenheimer could get Best Picture or The Holdovers, but I feel like The Holdovers is the only surprise of getting Best Picture. Like The Color
I
Purple,
think you're
girl,
right.
I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. I think you're right that it's going to be like almost certainly Oppenheimer, but if it's not Oppenheimer, probably the holdovers. But yeah. Yeah.
Because they're gonna give Barbie like some just like they're gonna be like, you know what, girl, we're gonna give you this award the same way they gave Jordan Peele
Best
the
original screenplay award. Yeah.
yes screenplay award
Yes.
instead of like a director nom, even though like
Yeah.
he's a
Well, he did get nominated for director, but I believe he lost to who would that have been? That would have been Damien Chazelle for La La Land that year.
uh
Is that right? No, no, no. It would have been Guillermo del Toro for Earth's Shape of Water. My bad. I got my years mixed up.
well, Guillermo del Toro definitely did deserve that Oscar, so you know what, I'm not that mad.
I'm glad he has an Oscar. That's not my favorite movie of his, but I'm glad he won something at some point. So
Doesn't that always happen? Doesn't
yeah,
that
of course.
always happen?
You win the award for the movie that like 10 years later, 10 years after the one you should have won for. So that's
Joaquin
why Greta
Phoenix
Gerwig. Oh
Joaquin
yeah,
Phoenix winning
yeah,
the
yeah,
Oscar for Joker and not for
yeah.
You Were Never Really Here or
Oh man,
Her.
that movie
Like,
kicks ass. Yeah, both those movies kick ass. Yeah.
yeah.
You were talking about Daredevil and Batman, and I derailed you, and I apologize. If you want to return to those, we can refocus the
Yeah.
conversation, get this back on track.
Yeah. Um, I just wanted to say that Daredevil Born Again is resuming filming on Monday, and with the
Mhm.
success of Echo, I'm very optimistic and hopeful in the direction that Daredevil Born Again is taken. Because initially, when the show was announced, they said that Karen and Foggy from the Netflix original series wasn't returning, but now they are. So it looks like there are a lot of things that have there's some things that have shifted in the time from when they originally announced the show and from the time where they are now beginning to film it. And the creators of Daredevil Born Again said that there's going to be a creative reset. So you shouldn't really depend on this show being a continuation of the Netflix series. This is something different, which
I was
you
gonna
know
ask,
what?
yeah.
If that's what you want to do, then that's fine. I'm gonna leave it in your hands because the creators of the show said that they're a huge fan of the Netflix series, and they said they would love to do it justice. And I was like, you know what? Okay, that's fine. That is okay. Let's just wait and see what happens. I'm not gonna, you know, put anything out there yet. If
Yeah.
it like if I don't want to be like, oh, this show's gonna be terrible, and then it turns out being great, and I don't want to be like, you know what, it's gonna be fantastic because they like the original show, and then
Yeah,
it
just wait and
ends up
see.
being like,
Nothing wrong with wait and see. Yeah.
yeah, just a
So as
just
someone, I never watched the Netflix show, even though I hear it's fantastic. That's a me problem that I never watched it. So this, and I don't know much about this new show. So based on the title and what you're saying here, this sounds like it's like a refresh, reboot situation, like a starting over
I
situation,
think
or
so.
yes and no. Okay.
I think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Why did you watch the Netflix one?
Uh, I don't know. I, there's a lot of TV to watch, a lot of movies to watch. I'm a busy
Mm-hmm.
man. I'm actually not that busy, but I
Mm,
just never got around to it. Yeah, there's what 3 seasons of the Netflix show, I think, 3 or 4.
think so. 3.
Yeah, I know that people love it. I know that it's and it's well received too by critics and
Mm-hmm.
audiences alike. I just never got to it, I guess.
I mean, I would say the since your was being reset, you can watch it if you'd like. But honestly, I would suggest watching Jessica Jones because I feel like that
Hmm.
series is very, very good. And there's no word of whether or not they're bringing that back, but I would like them to because there's a lot of talk around like those Netflix Marvel series when they were
Yeah,
really big and they were popping. Like they had the Defenders spinoff, which was like kind of okay. Like I would have given it a B minus. You know, it did what it came to do essentially. But you know, there was Daredevil, there's Jessica Jones, there's Luke Cage, and then there was Iron Fist. Those are the four. And me personally, because Iron Fist and Luke Cage kind of have a connection in the comics, I wanted Daughters of the Dragons, which was Misty Knight and gosh, one of the characters from Iron Fist, I forget her name, but I remember when that series was kind of like talked about, there were like whispers about it, like, oh, there's like a potential for this to happen. And then next thing you know, Marvel's like, actually, we're going to pull all these shows off, and there's no word of whether these will ever come back.
yeah.
So that basically killed all my dreams of that spinoff happening. So
Was
now
that because Disney Plus launched and they wanted to pull all their shows off of Netflix and put it on their own, do it themselves possibly, or why did they pull the plug on all this? Do you think?
they pulled the plug on those shows like I think 2 years, like 2 or 3 years before Disney Plus was actually a thing. So I
Hmm.
guess they were
Okay.
like in the beginning, they were beginning the frameworks of like creating their own streaming service, and then they're like, we can't have this existing,
Can't have our
you know?
competition, airing
No,
our stuff. Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah,
and they started pulling like all the Disney movies off of Netflix as well. So that's why people are
yeah,
kind of like,
yeah, yeah,
oh, Disney's building their own streaming service. That's why they're
yeah.
doing this. But then like they didn't put the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, so then they were just kind of like lost for a while. So it's just that they're like, so I'm not gonna get my fix. You're just gonna take this away from me. You're not gonna provide.
This is why I need to buy physical media, buy DVDs, buy Blu-rays,
Literally.
because I cannot count on them to keep them on their services.
No, you can't. They cancel your shows and suddenly they disappear from your. For those who are listening, Josh just showed me a
I just
DVD of Mean Girls. He just showed me a
just
Mean
held up
Girls
my physical
DVD.
copy of Mean Girls, even
Listen,
though I watched it on Max for this week for this discussion. I didn't even watch my DVD.
that's actually even more funny to me because it's on YouTube. Like, Mean Girls
Yeah.
is on
Yeah,
YouTube. You just
Oh,
have
excuse me.
to.
I watched it on Paramount Plus. I did not watch it on Max because obviously
Oh,
Paramount
okay.
Plus because Paramount has the musical in theaters right now. They want people
Mm,
watching the original on their streaming service. So obviously they're hosting Mean Girls on their streaming service right now, which is where I watched it. Yes,
right, of
that's called
course.
vertical integration.
Uh huh. You learn something new, guys. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and just close out Media Mania on the Marvel news. So we can jump right into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, which is Mean Girls. So, guys, we're
Ooh.
going to be diving right into it, trying to unravel the absolute turducken of Mean Girls adaptations, because the original Mean Girls film is kind of an adaptation of a book. It was really a self-help book for young girls, and it was explaining young girls' dynamics and like cliques in high school. And the book was called Queen Bees and Wannabes by Rosalind Wiseman. And Tina Fey, who wrote the book, and the movie. Sorry, Tina Fey, who wrote the movie Mean Girls, and Mark Waters, who directed the film, they drew a lot of inspiration from the book's themes and explored the dynamics of high school social cliques. And then they used all the information to create the movie that is Mean Girls, the classic from 2004, starring Lindsay Lohan, Alicia Silverstone, Rachel McAdams, and so many more phenomenal people. Yeah.
A lot of big names coming out of this movie. Yeah.
It's crazy to think about it, because when this movie first came out, it was just kind of like another teen flick. Like, when people talk about Mean Girls, I feel like people talk about it in the same breath of Clueless, Legally Blonde, you know what I mean? So they're just kind of seen as like chick flicks, like Charlie's Angels. But this movie is a coming of age film. It it's a hit, but it's definitely different from any other coming of age movie out there. It's different from any other teen film out there, really, because a lot of other coming of age movies and teen films follow this formulaic style of storytelling, and Mean Girls is incredibly different from them all. It really does take high school and like female dynamics, and it kind of puts it on its head. And I think that's what I enjoyed the most about this film when I first watched it.
Yeah, it like approaches, and I assume this is because of the nonfiction book that's adapted from. Especially, I have not read that book, but based on the title and based on what we see in the movie, it kind of approaches high school social dynamics, particularly girls' social dynamics, from like an anthropological perspective.
Yeah.
Because like Katie is like an outsider who used to work with like at like a nature preserve in Africa, so she kind of like applies that to humans in a high school in the Chicago area. And like in girl world, this happens. In girl world, you display dominance by doing this, or you know, that kind of thing. So it is like, I think it's smart to have like an outsider character entering this world as like the audience point of view character to like, again, it's like she's narrating a nature documentary about high school social dynamics. And I think it's really clever. It's really clever conceit that I think we kind of lost a little bit in the musical adaptation, but we can talk about that in a few segments.
Yeah. I remember watching the Mean Girls 2004 film for the first time. I was actually like, when I was younger, my family, we didn't have cable, we didn't have internet. I couldn't go to the movies. So I think that I may have been in middle school when I first saw Mean Girls, and it was already on DVD. So my babysitter, she had it, and we watched it, and it was, I don't think it was my first Lindsay Lohan movie, but it was definitely the first movie I watched where I was like, oh my gosh, I like feel connected to this character, because she's a fish out of water, like you said. She's so different, she's so new, and me being a young girl who doesn't have any connection to like pop culture or modern culture in any way, because I grew up like pretty sheltered. I really connected with Katie and how she felt and how like separated she felt from everybody else. And the movie was so funny, but I feel like this movie really opened my eyes to a different form of filmmaking where you have no choice but to follow this character and follow what's going on, because you couldn't even like predict what's going to happen next. Like when I was watching the movie for the first time, I thought Katie was going to lose the math competition. I was like, everything's going wrong in this girl's life. She's about to lose this. She's about to go back home and be in trouble. Like
she needed a win. She needed a win by that point. She'd been through the ringer. That was her climb back. Yeah, the math competition. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found it so interesting watching like the plastics, so to speak, because it did seem like Regina was super nice and super sweet in the beginning. And then when the girl comes like down the stairs and Regina tells her like, oh, I love your skirt, where'd you get it? And she was like, oh, it's my mom's in the 80s. Yeah. She's like, oh, vintage. The girl walks away. She's like, that's the most ugliest skirt I've ever seen in my life. I was like,
the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen in my life, which is a quote that I heard a lot in
I saw that.
Just the heel turn. Yeah, the heel turn's so good. That is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen in my whole life.
How dare you betray us like this? Don't you see the parallels, Regina? It's like, don't you see what you've done?
Yeah.
You betrayed us.
Well, that's the thing.
Gosh.
She puts on a smile to your face,
Mm-hmm.
and then will tear you down behind your back, which is kind of the whole thing with high school, or as the movie
Yeah.
will argue, is that's how it works, and that's what Katie has to learn, and we learn through her.
Yes. Yes, we do. And I do want to say also, Tina Fey did a phenomenal job writing this movie. And it's crazy to me that she wrote this film. Like, this is one of those movies you. I can't even imagine how you would even begin writing this film. Like, I don't even know how you would even, like, think, like, and then she gets hit by a bus. Like, I would think that's crazy. Like, I'd be like, no, I
That's
can't put that in there. No, no,
yeah.
no, no.
That's a pretty far left field thing, but I think I'm a huge 30 Rock fan, so I enjoy Tina Fey's work, and like that does seem like something that could happen in 30 Rock if somebody randomly gets hit by a bus and then
Mm-hmm.
we have to deal with the fallout of that. To your point, though, I think that it's a phenomenally written movie, and I really
Yes.
want to emphasize that it is a really well written movie. The characters feel fully realized. I feel like I know so much about Katie and Regina and Karen and Gretchen and Janice and Damien, like all of them feel like fully realized characters. And it also just like the arc is so compelling and like everything tracks really well. Like one thing
Mm-hmm.
leads to the other, leads to the next thing really well. I think Katie's like slow evolution to becoming a plastic is really well done. And like, bet I think they kind of rushed that in the musical version, but again, we can get to that.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a phenomenally written movie. And, you know, Tina Fey's had a long career in TV and movies for 20 plus years. Saturday Night Live, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, 30 Rock, as I just said, handful of movies. But I think this is maybe like, I think this is the best thing she's done in the film space.
Mm-hmm.
I think 30 Rock's the best thing she's done in the TV space, but this is like, this is Tina Fey's like magnum opus when it comes to
Yeah.
movies, I think.
I I do agree with you on that because this movie is wholly original. You could tell this is something
Yeah.
that was birthed from her brain, from her mind. And no one has been able to like truly duplicate it or come close to a film that's as iconic, something that is as culturally relevant to the 2000s, as something as quotable and as masterful, really. Like Regina George is like a name everybody kind of knows for being like a mean girl. Like Megan Thee Stallion calls herself the Black Regina George, and that makes sense. She deems herself that. Like,
Well,
yeah.
just the fact that in the musical adaptation, like they can have a song that's just titled "I Am Regina George," like that's just so powerful, given the
Mm-hmm.
2 decades behind that of the cultural relevance of that character. And to your point about the movie's so ubiquitous. I was in like middle school. I was ending middle school, about to go into high school myself when the movie came out, and like when I tell you, fucking everyone I knew had seen this movie, and not only had they seen it, they knew the movie like
Yeah.
really well and could
Yeah.
quote it off the top of their heads. It's just like very few movies in the last like 20 years, I think, were at like where every single person I knew was familiar with it, like intimately familiar with it, and like that's rare. And it's hard to overstate like how big of a deal it was at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
That's very true because when you think about films that came out in the 2000s, of course there were plenty of them that were culturally relevant, but not all of them were like culturally relevant and funny and interesting and also didn't take itself seriously. Like
Yeah,
teenagers pretending to be animals at a watering hole in the mall. Like you have to
yeah,
be so for real. And then
yeah,
a bunch of teenage girls literally throwing each other into walls, punching, fighting, screaming in high school. Like that wouldn't happen in actual high school, but to just show like how wild like teenage girls can be, like you talked bad about me and called me fat and ugly. I'm just gonna end your life here because that's it. Like I don't know what else there is to say. I
yeah,
trusted you. I trusted you with a secret. I kept it close to my heart. I gave it to you. You betrayed my trust. Now you have
yeah.
to die. Like that's it. You know.
So I think that's another thing is not only was it a big deal at the time, but it's kind of like remained a big deal, and like it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't really ever like gone away. Like some movies that get rebooted, however they get rebooted, whether it's with a musical or just a sequel 20 years later or a remake 20 years later, it's because they were a big deal at one point, but the studios are trying to like bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't really a movie that needs to be brought back because I feel like it's just kind of remained ubiquitous. Like people still watch. Like my brother's 10 years younger than me, and his friends also know this movie really well, even though they were like not even in kindergarten yet when the movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of trying to think of what that why that is. I think it's because that, even as middle school and high school changes, because, high school is different now than it was when I was in high school, but like complicated social dynamics still remain relatable. And
Yeah.
so the movie doesn't really, the power of the movie is not diminished, even though it's 20 years old and there's some outdated stuff in it and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the outdated stuff, when I was rewatching it, like that's the thing about movies that are old. People can revisit, rewatch them at any point in time, and they can enter into the cultural lexicon whenever they want. And I fully think that TikTok is a powerful tool for this because I'll just be scrolling on that app one day, and then I'll see a video and someone will be talking about how like Legally Blonde was everything to girls and like it made people want to go to law school, and it's like that makes sense. And I remember once seeing a
Absolutely.
TikTok for a girl who watched Mean Girls, and she's Vietnamese, and she's talking about the scene where like the two girls are talking to each other in the gym class,
Mhm.
and they're basically talking about how like, oh, guys like me better because, guys just like me better
The
than
two
you.
Asian girls, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
first of all, you are fighting over a grown man who is
yeah,
ugly. That
yeah.
first
A
thing.
gym teacher, a high
Yeah.
school gym teacher you're fighting over. That's a tough beat, man. Like, it not played by John Hamm, by the way. A gym
Mm-mm.
teacher not played by John Hamm.
Mm-mm,
What are you
girl.
doing?
And then what are the girl says like N-word please, and
Yes.
the young girl on TikTok, she translated it and she said, well, basically it either meant like she could say B word please, or she could say
Mhm.
come on, or like come on girl, like come on please. So it seemed like she edited that just for like shock value. And I remember watching it for the first time when I was a kid, and we had the captions on, and I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, what? Y'all put that in the movie? And I kind of just like brushed past it because it was like, whatever. It's a comedic movie. But as I've gotten older and I went back and rewatched it, I realized like there are little things in the film that, of course, for 2000s, that's fine. Like sometimes I watch 2000 movies and I'm like, oh, y'all are dropping that F slur like
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I
casually.
was gonna say. Not that one specifically, but I
Yeah.
think Regina says the R word 3 different
Yeah.
times
Yeah, she
in Mean
does.
Girls 2004.
She
Which,
does.
I mean, I was in high school in the mid 2000s when this came out, and I can attest that was like, it wasn't like nice to say, but it was definitely like still said an awful
Yeah.
lot, and
Of
like
course.
it's been, it's since been pretty excised from polite society vocabulary, but
Mm-hmm.
her saying that, she's like the villain of the movie, so it's kind of like different putting it in the villain's mouth and not like having our hero say that, but like you would definitely hear that in high school in
Yeah.
2004. So like that felt true to me, but also like hearing that now, I'm like, ugh. I kind of tense up when it happens. Like, ugh.
Right, right. It's so funny because I think for 2004 it makes sense and it fits. And also,
Mhm.
Tina Fey's a white woman. Like what can like in 2004, like I can't fault her for like not having the perspective of, being able to write something that's like not like a little less offensive or whatever. um I always found it funny, like me and my friends found it funny when like they would get to like the unfriendly black table, like unfriendly black hotties, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
girl, they just don't know you. You can't just walk up to a group of black people and be like, Jumbo. It's like,
That's
you think we know what
also
you're
really
talking
weird.
about?
Yeah,
Girl,
I
go
mean,
on
well,
somewhere.
she's uh, she's a fish out of water. Like,
She
she's just
is.
completely oblivious, and that's kind of like showing her obliviousness, but also she's well intentioned, but like completely off base there. So,
She
you
is
know,
well intentioned, but I find it so interesting how, not how quickly, but how seemingly easily she slips into Regina George's skin. And it makes me think like, how did no one else take her place? Like, it can't be possible
mm,
that Caddy Harrod is like was able to
the
outsmart
first girl
every
they
other.
see. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
she outsmarted all the rest of y'all. Like, you never thought to like step up to Regina George and be like, I could take her down. Like, nobody.
From the inside. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, that's probably like the
yeah.
one flaw I would find in the movie. There are different flaws you can find in the original film, but overall, it's a classic. Like, it's an undefeated, undisputed classic, and I I love that movie so much. And it's something you can rewatch easily, and you're just kind of like, listen, it was in 2004, girl. Don't get too uptight if you hear something you don't like. Okay, we're gonna have a
But
good time.
one thing I guess I want to say about it though before we move on is
Yeah.
one thing I think that makes it so good and makes it so enduring. And if I can use the word important as an important movie, it it centered high school girls in a way that was refreshing, and it took their problems seriously.
Yes, it
And I just want to
did.
like emphasize that. And
Yeah.
like I'm like thinking of the response to Twilight when Twilight came out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. This is an original idea to me. I'm like paraphrasing things I've heard, but like
Mm-hmm.
we as a culture don't really take teenage girls seriously at all,
Mm-hmm.
and like anything teenage girls like, we automatically assume is bad because teenage girls like it. That's
Mm-hmm.
why Twilight is so shit on. That's why like you see so many memes of like still a better love story than Twilight, that kind of thing. Reason being is teenage girls like it, therefore it must be bad. And like this again, the movie not only centers teenage girls, but like again takes their problems seriously and makes it like a compelling uh um
Almost character study.
complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's refreshing and more rare than you might think. Like there aren't a ton of movies that take the problems of teenage girls seriously, and they should be taken seriously,
Yeah.
as the movie would argue. So
You're right. And I think we see that in the scene in the gym where the girls are
I
kind of
love the
like
scene in the gym. Yeah, that's such a great scene. Like honestly, it's like kind of heartwarming and very very funny, but also
Yeah.
like it's nice. It's very nice.
I remember watching that and I was like, that's actually a very smart way to make young girls kind of like, talk out their feelings and just be able
And
to like
relate to each other. Yeah,
and
yeah,
relate
yeah.
to each other. And I was
And
watching that
find
and I was
common
like,
ground. Yeah.
yeah. It's one of those scenarios when you're watching something in a movie and you're like, they should do this in real life. Like this is actually
Really good idea, Miss Norberry.
this is
Yeah.
actually kind of genius, girl. Like, dang, Tina. Like, I actually kind of like that.
But also
Yeah.
one of the funniest lines in the movie for me is when Tim Meadows initially tries to lead that discussion, and then it's immediately confronted with
I can't help it if
heavy
I have a
menstruation
heavy
flow.
flow and a white set vagina. The first time I ever heard
Okay, I
that
can't do
word in a
this.
movie, it's like, oh, I'm shocked. I know what it is, but like,
That's
girl,
great.
have some couth, have some decorum. We can't just be saying that.
But that's the thing. That's like a normal thing to like have a concern about
Mm-hmm.
for a young woman, and so she should just be able to say that and not have Tim Meadows react the way he reacts. Like I get his reaction. I
Mm-hmm.
might react the same way and tap Miss Norberry to take this over, but
Yeah.
that's funny, but also like good. You should just like air things like that. That's fine.
Yeah. Just say what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of fun moments in the movie that I think I forgot about until I rewatched it. And I remember very vividly the scene when Regina kisses Aaron. And I was so confused. Like, I'm a child. I'm like so young. And I'm like, you're her friend. Why would you do that to her? Why would you kiss that guy? You don't even like him.
Yeah.
You literally broke up with him. And when Katie said, my stomach's for the fall of my butt, I was like, girl, I feel you. Like, I get
Yeah.
it. I really get it. And I don't think there's ever been such a relatable character to me at my young age than Caddy. And when she took over Regina's spot, I was like, so now you're betraying me. So now you're turning your back. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do love speaking of that moment in general, Lindsay Lohan's voiceover. Like
Yes.
the voiceover is really great in the original movie, and I felt that was missing in the musical version, but again, we can
Yeah.
talk about that. But like specifically that moment when she when Regina kisses Aaron
Mm-hmm.
and Katie's watching, and she's like, her voiceover is talking about how great of a friend Regina is, and then she pivots and about faces when she kisses him, and she
Yeah.
says, Regina is such a good slut, and she like her voice cracks when she says slut, and like I love it so much how much her voice cracks.
Yes. It's like,
um yeah,
what? What?
it's a great line read. Yeah, great job, Lindsay Lohan. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, when she like finds Janice and Damien watching the movie, and she comes in exactly at the right moment, I'm like,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is timing. Okay.
they redid that moment in the musical, in the movie musical, but like
It's kind of
it's kind of clunkier, like because
yeah.
like she's not in frame with the movie. That like her walking into the garage is not in the same frame as the TV, so like you can't see her entering the scene and like the jump scare in the movie happening at the same time, so you kind of lose the effectiveness of that. But
Yeah.
whatever. Real quick, and your listeners might be, discerning this, listening to me talk. I'm a big fan
Uh-huh.
of the Oscars.
Yeah.
Do you know how many future Oscar nominees are in the cast of the original Mean Girls movie?
How
How many
many?
future Oscar nominees? There are two future Oscar nominees, and they're both plastics. Both Amanda Seyfried and Rachel McAdams would go on to be Oscar-nominated actresses
I
from the
said
cast of
Alicia
Mean Girls.
Silverstone, and that's
You did. That's okay.
Clueless.
Yeah, that's Clueless. That's fine. Yeah, that's a different, ubiquitous, important movie about high school girls. That's a
Oh
different one,
my
but
god.
still very important.
Yeah.
I let it go. I heard it, but I'm like, there's no reason to correct her. Let's
No, you could have just corrected me though.
Alicia Silverstone, to my knowledge, has not been nominated for an Academy Award, but she should have been for Clueless, I think. But
Oh yeah, Clueless is a great
yeah,
movie.
Amanda Seyfried, Rachel McAdams. It is.
Amanda
And
Seyfried. What movie was it?
Mank, Best Supporting Actress for
Oh
Mank.
my
The movie
god.
Mank.
Oh my god.
When Netflix released the movie Mank in 2020 about Mank.
That's aggressive.
I like that movie.
You like
Yeah.
that movie?
Well, I do like that movie. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, I think we already
That's
talked
crazy,
about
right?
this off pod. That like
I don't remember if I specifically talked to you about Mank, but I'm a David Fincher head, and even though
I
people who are
love
David Fincher heads,
Yeah.
not everybody likes Mank, even though they like David Fincher. But I'm in the bag for Mank. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, Mank felt like I don't know how to say this. It felt like the most obvious Oscar bait movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, if you really want to win an Oscar, make a movie about filmmaking. And what's more Oscar bait than making a movie about one of the best films ever made, which won an Oscar, and then the person who wrote the movie never wrote again. Like,
Yes. However, that is a movie very much that's like, kind of like criticizing the studios quite a bit. It's kind of like anti-Hollywood establishment, at least the character in the movie is. So
yeah.
I get what you're saying, and I think on the face it definitely feels Oscar baity, but it kind of was like subverting that a little bit in my mind. But you want to make this a Mank pod? You want to not talk about Mean Girls? Switch to Mank instead.
No. You don't need to do that.
Mank Girls.
No. I did want to say just one last thing. The fact that Amanda Seyfried got nominated for Mank is like one little pet peeve I have sometimes, because there are those films where the majority of the cast are men. There's like one or two women, and the one or two women, they always get nominated. But in my opinion, personally, don't even bother nominating them, because they barely had any lines. They barely had a significant role in the film. They're just kind of there. So you just nominate them regardless, because you feel like if you don't nominate them, it's sexist. But I feel like you nominated them as like, did you not realize that like they contribute nothing to this movie? Like, you take them out of the film is the same.
So you're really excited to see Emily Blunt nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Oppenheimer in a few days, then I take it. That's a joke. But she will be nominated, I'm sure. But I agree with your point. I agree with your point. I think Amanda Seyfried's great in Mank, but I agree with your point overall. Like, that's yeah.
Amanda Seyfried is good at everything that she does. But the one thing I want to say is Emily Blunt, in my personal opinion, she should have been nominated for an Oscar for Sicario.
She should have been nominated for a lot of Oscars by now, and this is going to be her first Oscar nomination. And it's kind of wild to me, because I think she's been nominated for like 5 Golden Globes, like 3 Golden Globes or something, and like 5 SAG Awards, but never an Oscar. And she should have been nominated, honestly, for The Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
Like, full stop. She's incredible in that.
Yeah.
And iconic. Performances endured. That movie's endured.
Yes.
So.
That's true. I actually
Sicario's great, though.
I actually rewatched Sicario recently, because I was just kind of going through my letterbox and I was looking for something to watch, and I was like, what's something that I've reviewed that I haven't seen in a long time? Sicario is one of those. And I was rewatching that movie, and I was like, this is like one of the best crime, drug, war movies I've ever seen. And yet, nobody talks about this movie. Like, I didn't even know Daniel Kaluuya was in this movie until I rewatched it. Because when I watched it the first time,
I forgot
I was watching it for Benicio del Toro. And now that I know who Daniel Kaluuya is, I'm like, wait a minute.
I also haven't seen that since it came out, so like I also am due for a rewatch. But that was pre Get Out. That was probably pre the Black Mirror episode he was in.
I think it was
pre Widows. After the Black Mirror. Okay. I probably saw them around the same time, so I don't know which came first. But yeah, I'm sure if I watch Sicario now, a lot of familiar faces may pop up. Yeah, I like that movie.
Oh yeah.
At least I remember liking that movie. I haven't seen it in 8 years, but it was good when I saw it.
It's solid. It's a solid movie.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I remember I already watched it, but upon rewatching it, I was still like, wait a minute. What's going on? What's happening?
That border scene, dude. That fucking border scene. Oh my god.
Whew, man. They don't make movies like that no more.
They don't, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. even though I love the original Mean Girls and I could talk about it like forever, I have so many notes on it. I do want to start talking about Mean Girls the musical because
Yes.
you haven't had the pleasure and the joy of watching the musical. And don't start laughing. I'm being you.
You're just right. You're correct.
Yeah, I do have to say because there are so many slime tutorials on YouTube. Honestly, just go watch it because it's 2 hours. But musicals that are like 2 hours long don't feel like 2 hours to me because
I think it's two and
it's.
a half.
Oh yeah,
I think it's 2.5 hours. Yeah, but sorry. Sorry,
it's
continue.
yeah, it's kind of between that. But
Yeah.
Mean Girls the musical came out in 2018. That's when it
Mm-hmm.
premiered on Broadway, and it's very
Yes.
interesting that the movie transitioned to Broadway because the film came out in like 2004. So it's kind of like, why are we doing this? But there have been a number of movies that have been turned into musicals. Namely, I feel like one movie that was very popular that turned into a musical was Legally Blonde. Because I was actually
Mm-hmm.
surprised when that was turned into a musical. But I saw the pro shot that was on MTV, and I've actually rewatched that pro shot so many times because it's actually so good. And I love it so much. And the one thing that I enjoy about musicals that are based on movies is that you already know the movie, you already know the story, you already know the characters. The great thing about musicals is that they take every character that has any kind of significant conflict in the movie or any kind of like, change that they're going to go through throughout the movie, and they're going to take the time for you to explore like how they're feeling, what's going on with them, what's their motivations, what are they thinking, and you explore this through song because it's a musical. But that is the beautiful thing about musicals is that we take the time to understand these characters. We take the time to learn about them, to understand why they're this way. And that's why I love Mean Girls the musical because Gretchen in the movie, we can tell that she is insecure and she is following Regina like a dog. She cannot stop like following Regina. Like she needs her approval so desperately. And in the musical, you can see it like in the way that she sings, in the way that the actress is with the like actress who plays Regina George, and also Gretchen in the musical has a song where she literally talks about like what's wrong with me. Please tell me what's wrong with me. Like my mother told me it was beautiful, but obviously my mom was wrong because Regina is telling me that I'm not beautiful. So like, what does Regina think? How does Regina feel about this? What I need Regina's approval, and you can feel like her desperation. You understand that, and I feel like that's so interesting. And I feel like this is a beautiful way for you to expand upon characters that you already love, that you
Yeah.
already know, that you already
Mm-hmm.
understand, and give them a lot more depth that you can't do in a 90-minute movie because you only have so much
Right.
time. You can't focus on like
Yeah.
every single person.
As much as I said that the characters were well drawn in the
Mm-hmm.
original movie, and I stand by that, they absolutely are, but they are, I think, the musical is an opportunity to flesh them out even more, to your point. And I think Gretchen's a really good example of a more fleshed out character. Or, like, maybe not. There's, like, suggestions that there's more going on beneath the surface for Gretchen in the musical than there is in the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
At least based on the movie version, the musical movie version that I saw, because I've not, as I said, have not seen the Broadway musical. But um, you're right. That's a good opportunity to do that because of you can hear characters' thoughts more via
Mm-hmm.
song, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really what's great about musicals. You hear characters' thoughts through songs. And
Mm-hmm.
one song that I love, absolutely love, is Someone Gets Hurt, which was also in the movie adaptation. And I love the musical one, and I feel like the musical one is better. Like, personally, I'm just going to say, like, the songs from the Broadway original, like the original Broadway cast recording, sounds better than the movie because it seems like the movie is like remixing it to sound like a pop album, which some people like and some people don't like. And I'm the fact of people that don't like it because I want to hear you singing. You know what I mean? Like I want to hear singing.
Yeah.
I want to hear raw vocals. I know the
Belts it
people.
out.
Yeah, I know the people on this cast can sing. I know Renee Rapp can sing. I've listened to like a lot of her songs, but when they get to World Burn and it gets to that one high note, when I saw it on the musical, like when I watched the musical, I was like, oh, like that's one of the hardest notes. It's like watching Adina Menzel sing Defying Gravity. It's like, it's like
Mm.
get
Yeah.
it. But when you see it in the movie, they like auto-tuned it so that it sounds like really strange, a little scratchy when I saw it in the theater, and I was like, so you're going to who
You're
do I have?
ruining it.
Why are we doing this? What's going on? Who made this decision?
Well, we can talk about this more when we talk about the movie musical
Yeah,
as opposed to the musical itself. But
yeah,
have you seen the TikToks of people doing a comparison, side by side comparison of the Broadway cast recording of the songs and then the movie version recording of the songs?
yeah,
Pretty devastating.
yeah.
Pretty devastating for the movie version of the songs. They sound, to your point, they sound significantly worse. But if I'm going to be honest, it's not Renee Rapp that's the problem. It's
No,
somebody else, and we can
yeah.
name her in a little bit. But it's
I
tough.
do
So
I do want to say, like, someone gets hurt. I love that song. And I love that song especially because when you watch Mean Girls, the movie, and you're watching the scene where Regina talks to Aaron, when I first watched that movie and I saw like Aaron kiss Regina, I was like, what are you doing? You must be stupid because how is it that this girl cheated on you and you dumped her and now she simply says like, oh, this girl has a crush on you, but be careful, she's obsessed with you, she's doing like this voodoo like ritual to like
they
make
don't
you.
say voodoo in the musical movie version that I watched. I don't know if that's in the
No,
stage version, but they
it's
cut it
not.
out because that might be culturally insensitive for a
Yeah,
girl from
it's
Africa to be doing voodoo. Yeah.
yeah, it's in the movie. But in the
Yes.
musical, they make it seem like, oh, well, she's obsessed with you. Like she really, really likes you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
she's so innocent. She's so naive, and I don't want you to take advantage of my friend. And then she pretends to get choked up, and she's like, "This is so hard for me." And then Aaron's like, "What?" And then
Yeah.
someone gets hurt. Starts, and I love this song so much because it shows you Regina is a master manipulator. She gets what she wants. And that's what I love about the musical because we're getting a lot more in depth with this character. And I feel like it's essential, especially for this scene, because watching the movie, Aaron, you look like an idiot. Why did you kiss this girl? Like, she obviously doesn't like you. She doesn't care about you. Like, what are we doing here? But in the
Right.
song, um, Renee, no, Renee, Regina is placing the blame on Aaron. You know, she's making it seem like, oh, he's shallow. You only dated me because I'm cool, because I'm sexy, because I'm hot, and you didn't really like me for me. So you weren't really in it like for like anything serious. And now you like my friend, you're trying to date my friend, and I don't really know if you really want to be with her because of her, or if you want to be with her because she's my friend and she's also pretty. And I don't know if I could trust you to be with her because I feel like you're gonna betray her the same way you betrayed me. And she's making him think like he's the problem. It was him.
Yeah.
He's the reason why they broke up. And then she's like, "Was I a game to you?" And I, when she said that, I was like, "Oh, he's done. Wrap it up. He's done. It's over." And
Classic gaslighting.
classic gaslighting. And what
She
better?
really is girl bossing, gaslighting, and gatekeeping in this
Yeah.
interaction. She's doing all three. Check, check, check.
Yep,
Yes.
absolutely. Knocking it out and doing it with flawless vocals at that. And another thing that I found really interesting because I was doing just a little bit more research on the song because it's one of my favorite songs from the musical soundtrack. The line "till someone gets hurt" is kind of preceded with like flirting and like being flirty with somebody, and that's exactly what Regina is doing. She's being flirty with Aaron, and you're hurting Katie. So she's kind of like almost um prophesying upon her own downfall that like, listen, if you keep doing this, Katie is going to be upset and then she is going to retaliate. Like there's going to be no option. So she like not like on purpose, but she kind of like predicts her own downfall
Yeah.
in a way
Yeah.
by
A lot of
doing
dramatic
this.
irony in that. Yeah. She doesn't realize she's talking about herself potentially.
No,
Yeah.
she does
Yep.
it.
Yep. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. And there
That's good
are
writing.
it's great writing. And I do have to say, like, the musical overall is, I think, an elevation of the movie itself. I will say, this is a problem that I also saw in Heather's the musical, because Heather's phenomenal movie, like 10 out of 10. The musical is a sanitized, kind of like 80s, like almost like, because Heather's the musical came out around the same time that 16 Candles came out,
Mm.
and Breakfast Club, and those films are, beloved by many people, but they're also kind of family friendly. And Heather's is not that at all. But Heather's the
That's not
musical.
murderous.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Heather's the musical takes that same kind of like 16 Candles vibe, What was the director of 60 Candles? It's like John.
John Hughes wrote it. I don't know if he directed it, but
John
that's a John
Hughes.
Hughes movie. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
It Heather's the Musical gets the John Hughes treatment of it still being like, it still has that bite. It's still like violent. It's still gritty, but it's just a little less dark because it's a musical. And there are dark musicals out there, of course, but like the Heather's the Musical tones it down on how dark it can be, and it takes away from that. And Mean Girls the Musical does that as well, where Mean Girls the movie is like very raw and very much 2004, and it's a great comedy because of it. But the musical, since it's set in 2018, of course there are certain things they have to cut out, certain things they have to change. But
They
because
sand it down a little bit, yeah.
yeah, they sand it down a little bit. They like sanitize it because it's a musical and they want to appeal to like families so that, you know, young kids can come in and watch it, but they still want to give something to the adults for like,
Yeah.
you know. And there are so many things, there are so many songs, there's so many sequences I love in the musical. And of course, like everyone will say World Burn is the best song in there, and it is. I'll have to say it doesn't matter. Look,
You're correct.
it doesn't matter who's singing it. Renee Rapp, I don't care. It's the best song because one thing about it, I am a musical theater nerd, and because I love singing show tunes, I have tried to sing World Burn, and you know what, Renee Rapp, girl, you got it down. You got it on lock. You got that.
So, as a musical theater nerd, I'm
Uh-huh.
not a musical. I do not identify as a musical theater nerd myself. But
Okay.
let's see the lyrics for the Mean Girl musical. The music was written by Jeff Richmond, who is Tina Fey's husband in real life.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote all the music for 30 Rock as well. He wrote the music, but not the lyrics for the musical adaptation. Lyrics were written by Nell Benjamin,
Mm-hmm.
who you mentioned when you were talking about movies being adapted into musicals. Nell Benjamin and her husband actually wrote all the music and lyrics for Legally Blonde, so she has the bona fides for writing musical numbers for existing movie characters. So
Yeah.
I think it's cool that, you know, some of the two more successful movies into musical adaptations, the lyrics were written by Nell Benjamin for both of them.
Yeah. And Legally Blonde, the musical, is also very good because it does expand more on like Elle's character and also like on the guy that she dated who was in law school. Not the guy who broke up with her, the other guy.
Warner. Oh, not Warner.
Not Warner.
Yeah, the
Elliot.
the Luke Wilson character. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Elliot, I love his character a lot more in the musical. And I do have to say, also, like, I, I have to say this. Because Mean Girls 2024 is an adaptation of the Broadway musical, you should have casted people who can sing. Because there are a
Yeah.
lot of songs in the musical where people are singing in tandem with one another. Because it's not, musicals treat songs like it is a different language. If you do not speak the language, you're not part of the story. Okay?
Right.
Aaron
That's well put.
Samuels sings. He sings and someone gets hurt. He sings the reprise of Stupid with Love because he sings about how he was stupid to be with Regina. So he stops dating because he felt hurt by the way that their relationship ended. And Chris Farley doesn't sing. He
Wow, yeah, I'm just not realizing that. Yeah, that the Aaron they have doesn't really sing at all. Yeah.
he didn't sing for his audition. He doesn't
Okay.
sing at all.
Yeah, he's not in there. That's weird.
How
Yeah, how
do
about
you
that?
have Jacquel from A Strange Loop from on Broadway in your cast, and Miss Moana, Miss Renee Rapp, Queen of R&B, and you have someone who is like the main love interest who doesn't sing. The love interest always sings.
Yes.
They always sing. What's like that's another thing that I like. I love Someone Gets Hurt in the movie musical because the way they did that, chef's kiss. But without Aaron singing in tandem with Regina at the end, him fully being under her spell, him fully being manipulated, him fully believing him fully being gaslit, and then singing with her, and him
That's
not
character
singing.
work that they're missing. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, they're missing character work there.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I again, not being familiar with the musical myself, I didn't even know that was missing. But you're right, that is absolutely missing. That would have really added to it if they had a guy who could sing.
If
Yeah.
they had a guy who could sing. And let me tell you something, they're not hard to find, okay?
I bet Jonathan Bennett can sing. Jonathan Bennett, who played Aaron Samuels in the first movie, I bet that guy can sing. You know,
He's
get
also
one of his
old
friends.
enough to be one of the teachers, so
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. I
Yeah.
was literally like, when this is so mean, but when I watched the movie in theaters, I pulled up my phone. I was like, young Broadway stars under 30, because I wanted to see how hard it was to find somebody else. And trust me, it was not that hard. It
Yeah.
wasn't. And
Well,
if we really wanted to flex, we could have got Jordan Fisher.
I was gonna mention Jordan Fisher. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He is
yeah.
29, so he's a bit older,
So
but
what? Yeah.
listen, he's a little
How
like,
old was John Travolta in Grease? He was probably like 30 when they filmed Grease. He was playing a high schooler, so it's fine. Yeah.
oh my gosh. You know what? You're right. I'm pretty sure like a lot of the cast are mid 20s, like, so it makes sense. Yes. Did you have any questions for me in regards to the musical?
Let
Since
me
you,
see.
yeah.
Um. I was trying to do my research because I am so unfamiliar with the musical itself. So I was trying to do my research about it
Uh
here and
huh.
there. So I see that Renee Rapp was not in the original Broadway cast, but she was like one of the first replacements for Regina in like 2019. So she was Regina on Broadway for like a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Renee Rapp was, but I read that at one point Sabrina Carpenter was a replacement for Katie Heron, but I found a Teen Vogue article that
Mm
was like talking about her making her Broadway debut
hmm. Mm
as
hmm.
Katie Heron in Mean Girls, but the article was dated March 11th, 2020, which was also, according to Wikipedia, the very last performance of Mean Girls the musical before it shut down for COVID. And
Yeah.
it never reopened as far as I know.
Mm
And so
hmm.
like the article was saying that she just made her Broadway debut like a couple nights earlier.
Mm
So
hmm.
did Sabrina Carpenter play Katie Heron for like literally 2 or 3 shows and then she
Yeah.
got axed because of COVID? Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it
Man.
actually does suck how many of that, like, COVID cut a lot of musicals time short. The most
Oh
notable
yeah.
one is Beetlejuice the musical, because that
Mm.
already was like struggling on Broadway already, and then the lead actress was leaving because she wanted to pursue like TV projects. So they were already losing like one of their like biggest draws to the musical, and then COVID happened, and they were just kind of like, well, we may not bring this musical back because you guys weren't even making that much money, and like you're not really paying up your side of the contract to like be able to stay in this theater. And then TikTok was able to revive the love for the musical, and then was able to return back to Broadway, which is awesome, because I actually do love Beetlejuice
Yeah.
the musical. I think it's one of the movie musicals that does a really great job, because it actually changes a big part of the movie, but it does change it for the better, I will have to say.
Do you think
Unfortunately,
we'll
like,
see a movie version of the Beetlejuice musical at some point?
well, that's the thing. That's one thing I do want to cover in this podcast, because there's been this weird trend. It's been like up, down, with studios wanting to be like, we want musicals, we want movie musicals, we want pro shots and musicals. It's like, and they're like, nope, absolutely not. Don't even bother. Don't even bring that over here. And it's because, you have like the NBC musicals that used to,
Yeah, live
um,
TV
yeah,
musical presentations.
you
Aid.
used to see them on like Thanksgiving, I think it was, and maybe Christmas
Mhm.
sometimes. And then there were a lot of musical flops in like West Side Story and a couple other musicals,
Which
and
is a
that,
tragedy. That movie is great. I thought the movie was amazing, and no one went to see it. But neither here nor there. Sorry.
yeah, no, you're right. And also In the Heights was another one that flopped, which sucks because In the Heights is actually like one of the best musicals out there. You know what I mean? Like literally, if you love Hamilton, you'll love In the Heights, because it's
Yeah.
written and produced by the same person who did Hamilton. And
Hmm.
Hamilton itself was such a, I don't know, spark in the dark. It was such a international phenomenon. When it went on Disney Plus, like, it was one of the most popular titles on Disney Plus, and it showed that like people don't hate musicals. You just haven't found your musical. You haven't found the musical that you like, because there are a plethora of musicals out there, but access to musicals is very different. And the kind of musicals that people usually see are like the standard ones. That could be Little Shop of Horrors, Hairspray, Grease. Like those are the ones that everybody knows. Obviously, like there are a lot of new ones coming out now, and it's not easy for people to go see musicals because it's not like everyone can go to New York and go see a Broadway show. Like that's not something
Right.
that's accessible to everybody. And I think that we've seen a rise of movie musicals to try and like, test that with audiences to see if that's popular. But there's also been a rise of pro shots being available to the public. One in particular was Waitress the musical, and this was a pro shot with Sarah Bareilles in the cast, and this became popular. This was available around Christmas time, and it was only in theaters for 2 weeks. But because so many people went to watch it, so many people were requesting it in their AMC theaters, they decided to extend that. And that was in tandem with Bleecker Street Studios. And they did a pro shot of like an actual recording and then rehearsals, which is the same thing they did with the Hamilton pro shot on Disney Plus. And they see like the success of these, pro shots doing well in theaters, and some of these movie musicals doing well on streaming and in theaters. So studios are kind of like, maybe we can bank on this and see if it's going to come to fruition, see if it's going to make us money, or they're going to be like, we've had a couple flops in the past, and even though those flops, so to speak, have brought in like awards prestige and like brought us into the awards conversation, is that enough to bet on another adaptation? Because one adaptation that was supposed to become a film or become a motion picture by like that should have been out by now was Once on This Island, which is a Caribbean musical that I went to see once, and it's actually a very underrated musical, but so beautiful. And if they ever did a pro shot musical for it, it would be phenomenal, and I feel like it would do super well because it is a great story. But because there's been this swaying trend and like people like being wishy-washy about whether or not musicals are going to do well, essentially all they did was write the script, find the director, and that's it. So the success of Mean Girls could determine whether or not they're going to move forward with bringing more pro shots or exploring more movie musicals. It really just depends on what the studios say, because there isn't a solid uptick or a solid trend towards movie musicals or musical pro shots that you see with like true crime documentaries, or you see with like, I don't know, superhero movies. You know what I mean? Like they want to see like steady growth, like a steady incline, and that hasn't been shown. So
yeah,
it really depends.
I didn't realize that they did a theatrically released pro shot of Waitress the musical, and I just searched it while you were talking, and they actually just hit Amazon Prime, I think, like a few days ago. So the pro shot of Waitress starring Sarah Bareilles that was in theaters is now streaming. So if you want to see more stuff like that, then stream it so the numbers are good, and vote with your dollar, right?
Listen, I recommend everybody see it because Waitress the musical, to me, like my friends told me like, oh Monica, I don't think I'll like this because it's very wholesome, and I was like, okay, sure. We get to the end of Act 1. I was like, y'all are liars. This is actually spicy. Like, this is juicy. I actually love this.
I've seen the original movie from 2007. It was many years ago, but I did see the movie, and I thought it was really great. Kerry Russell plays the Sarah Bareilles part, and it's wonderful. Have not seen the musical version, but I'm sure it's great because Sarah Bareilles is great.
Oh, yeah. Sarah Bareilles is amazing. I didn't know it was based off a movie.
Yes.
Like, I just knew the musical.
Good movie. Good movie. Recommend it, yeah.
I probably should check out the movie, too. Because I do love Kerry Russell. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Is there any... Did you want to move into the movie musical?
Let me see if there's anything else I want to ask about the musical.
Yes.
A lot of Tony nominations, no wins, though.
Which sucks because it's good.
Yeah. It was nominated for 12 Tonys, which is like a lot. And it won 0. And I was looking at the Tonys that year. It lost most of its award to a musical called The Band's Visit, which I hadn't heard of. Are you familiar as a musical theater person with The Band's Visit? Because I'm not.
This is the thing about the Tonys that pisses me off sometimes.
Okay.
The Tonys...
wait, let me sit down. Okay. No.
The Tonys and the Oscars are not that different. Because there was one year where they did like... I remember Oscars So White when that year happened, and the following
2 years in a row.
Yeah. The following Tonys gave all their awards to Hamilton, essentially. And there are so many articles coming out like, oh, Oscars So White and Tony's so diverse. Look at how the musical theater world, the film world is so different. And I'm like, y'all are playing in our faces, because Hamilton was such a huge hit that everyone went to see Hamilton, and so many other musicals that are out on Broadway did not get like as many people to go see those musicals. And it's not really Hamilton's fault, but like Broadway has that problem too, as well as like films do.
Look at the audience. Yeah. Look at the Broadway audience and tell me how diverse Broadway is. Like, not to point any fingers, but
literally,
that's a problem they've been trying to reckon with for a few years now, I think.
Yeah.
Making it more accessible.
And The Band's Visit, I haven't heard of that musical, but this happens a lot where musicals will come out and they'll be diverse, they'll be different, they'll be new, they'll be eccentric, they'll be special, and they'll have amazing cast. And the people, and when it comes to like award season, will people go see it? I mean, will these people get like, will these same musicals get like, nominations? Like, I don't know. I don't know if they will, because I do
Yeah.
know around the same time Mean Girls the musical was nominated. Once on This Island was also nominated as well, but I don't know if Once on This Island won any awards. And the Tonys also love to do this thing where they're like, "Oh, let's have the most diverse musicals and plays do a performance for our award show and then not give them any awards." Because
That's tough.
why
Hey,
would
could you do an elaborate musical number for us and then just go home and not come accept an award?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah. Beetlejuice, why don't you come in and like sing about like what's going on, and like, we will just not
I mean,
give you anything.
I guess in their defense, as someone who doesn't regularly watch the Tonys, like Oscars have the benefits of being able to show clips from the movies they're nominating, and the Tonys may not necessarily have that. So the equivalent of having clips of the movies is having performers come on stage and like do numbers from the show potentially. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too generous to the Tonys, but just in their tepid defense.
The thing is that people who care about the Tonys care about musicals.
Yes.
And the Tonys in the voting committee are the same as the Oscars in the voting committee. They will vote for the movie or the musical that they watch. They will vote for the movie or musical that they relate to. The reason why Hamilton obviously got all those awards because it was such an international phenomenon, they had no other choice but to give it all those Tonys. Because Lin-Manuel Miranda, if I remember correctly, got a Nobel Prize before even getting a Tony, before even getting an Oscar. So if they didn't give him the Tony, then like, what were they doing? And any musical that was as diverse as Hamilton that was nominated for a Tony after that didn't really receive the same love from the Tonys. And there have been obviously standouts. There have obviously been people that have won Tonys since Hamilton. Obviously, Alex Newell, they are a non-binary performer, and they're on the musical Once on This Island and also Shucked, I believe, and they won a Tony, and I think it was last year that they won a Tony, which is amazing. But it's not like it's the first time that like, someone who is queer has been nominated for a Tony and like had the chance to win it and then like didn't win it. They just like to pick and choose for the most part.
It was a Pulitzer Prize that Lin-Manuel Miranda won, not a Nobel.
Oh,
but
Pulitzer,
like,
my bad.
Almost as good. Yeah, Pulitzer. Yeah. I think was it did Kendrick Lamar win a Pulitzer too? Okay, that's what, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good for them. Good for you, Pulitzer committee. Yeah.
And I also want to say, I find it. I didn't know anything about like Pulitzer or Peabodys, but when I actually looked into it, researched it, I was like, you know what? I actually should keep up with these awards instead of whatever is going on with the Emmys, because Insecure won a Peabody in the first season when it wasn't nominated for any Emmys. So obviously, whoever is working over there in that category is actually watching these shows.
I'm so thrilled I could say this. I've been meaning to watch that. Insecure. I have not, but I've been meaning to. President Issa Rae.
You have Max, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course I do. I can fire up Insecure.
Yeah, you have to watch it. By the time the next time we talk, you have to have watched it. Not the whole thing, obviously, but like I will expect you to be a few episodes in.
Okay.
And if you have questions for me, that's natural. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. Okay. We can move into the movie musical,
yes,
Mean Girls. And I do want to say this just right off the bat. The only other movie adapted to a movie again, that like obviously is out is The Color Purple. So I don't know if this is what happened with The Color Purple. For the most part, people have very positive reviews about it, and also positive reviews for Mean Girls for the most part. But I will have to say, the movie musical Mean Girls is based off the musical, not the movie. So I think that's a disconnect for a lot of viewers, because I think that it's a musical adaptation of the movie, but it's not. it's an adaptation of an adaptation. So there are going to be some things that are lost and watered down. I feel like for the most part they kept true to a lot of things in the original movie and mainly in the musical, but because the musical has been like cut down to be a movie, there are
Yes.
some things that are lost. There are some songs
Yes.
that are
That's important.
cut, and there are
Hmm.
some, things that are not, you know, shown in the movie, which is what I
Yeah.
wanted to say first off.
So yeah. So earlier you were talking about the musical, and you said it's 2 hours long, and I rudely corrected you and interrupted you to say it was 2.5 hours long. And
It's fine.
the only reason I wanted to say that is because the musical, as I understand it, is about 2.5 hours long, but they cut it down to 2 hours for the movie version. And
Mm-hmm.
so, to your exact point, they like cut out half an hour of the full show in order
Yeah.
to get it into a movie format. And so not only are they cutting songs like you said or shortening songs, but also like being not familiar with the original musical show, like it did feel a little like the storytelling, the flow of the story felt a little clunkier to me
Yeah.
than I'm comparing it to the original movie, which, as I said earlier, is extremely well written and flows really well. And like because they cut some stuff, like because I'm familiar with the original movie,
Mm-hmm.
nothing was really lost for me. But like I was trying to like picture this as someone experiencing the story for the first time,
Yeah.
and like some of the from A to B just like doesn't flow as well. It's like I don't know, just it feels like stuff is missing, and that's because stuff is missing. Apparently, a full half
Yes.
hour is missing. So like I definitely did feel that watching the movie this week.
Yeah. You're right. There are, because like musicals, songs are the vehicle. Songs are the driving force of a musical. So if you have an act one of your movie musical littered with songs, and then act two has like one or two songs in there, there's something that's like lost there. There's something that's missing, like. And there
Mm-hmm.
is one song that fans of the musical really liked called Stop, which was basically like Damien's big number, where he's basically talking about like cyberbullying, which is actually one of the funniest songs in the musical besides Sexy, which I wish they kept the original, I guess, integrity of Sexy from the musical. Like, there are some things there. Like, I'm not mad at the dance break. I actually found that very funny. I actually enjoyed that a lot.
Protect the integrity of sexy. Monica was.
Please. Oh my gosh. Okay. Uh,
Okay, but hold on. What I was gonna say
yeah.
is
Go ahead.
okay. Let me ask about sex real quick,
Yeah.
just because this was another thing that I thought of. Um, Sexy is the song that Karen sings at the Halloween party about. It basically is replacing the voiceover in the movie where Katie says in voiceover that in Girl World, Halloween's one night of the year they're allowed to dress as sluts and no one will call them out on it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, just making a song out of that one little bit of narration,
Yeah.
which is great. That song in the movie ends with Karen pointing at her ears and saying, "I'm a mouse, duh," which is a callback to a joke in the original movie
Mm-hmm.
because Gretchen doesn't know what Karen is dressed as, and she says, "I'm a mouse, duh." But
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not really a joke in the context of the musical movie because like no one's confused about what her costume is, and no one asks her
No.
about it. So she's kind of just like saying it as like a nod to the original movie, but like I'm not sure it really worked in the context besides just like acknowledging the previous version, which isn't necessarily a problem, I guess. But
No.
um, I guess I was curious like there are other things like that are like nods to the original, but like without the context of the original. So it's like saying the punchline of a joke without saying the setup or something like that. And a few of those bump me a little bit, maybe.
I think
What do you think about
that I do agree with you, and because I saw the musical, when I watched the musical recording, Karen just says like, "I'm a sexy mouse," and everyone laughs because it's funny. Her delivery is
that is funny.
hilarious.
That's funnier than her just saying "I'm a mouse," duh, to no one at the end of the
Yeah.
musical number. Like
Yes. Yeah.
that's fair. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of things in the movie they take from the musical, but it kind of loses its flair because when you say it in front of a live audience, they know it's a musical comedy. They're there to
Hmm.
laugh. So of
Yeah,
course it's
yeah, yeah.
funny. I feel like a lot of also Regina George's mom, who's played by Busy Phillips, who like I love
She's
Busy
great.
Phillips. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is where she's talking about like, you girls could talk to me about anything, like anything deep, alcohol poisoning, whatever. In the musical, they have an electric dog that like just bobs its head. It's like this, supposed to mimic the real
Uh huh.
dog. And at one point,
Yeah.
the actress who plays the mom unknowingly puts the dog's head under her boob. So her boob is like doing this, which is like a nod to the movie of the dog like literally
Yeah.
like ripping the
Is
boob
biting
apart.
on her implant. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
It's funny because the mom doesn't even notice, and the boob is just
Yeah.
like this. She's like, "Girls, just talk to me about anything, like boys, like whatever you want." And
And
then
you know
Regina's
what?
like, "Mom, please."
That's great because
Yeah.
it's like basically giving you a joke that you liked in the movie, but giving it to you in a new way, which almost makes it even
Yes.
funnier. So like that's great, and I don't believe that appeared in the movie that I just watched, but
Mm-hmm.
that would have been great, you know. I guess when I was watching the musical version, the movie version of the musical, I thought this strikes me as something that's more of a companion to the original Mean Girls rather than
Mm.
like a replacement of the original Mean Girls, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like
I think
again,
that
I go ahead, sorry.
no, you go ahead.
As I already said, I'm kind of curious what someone who's never seen the Lindsay Lohan movie would think of this, because to me, it's just like giving me something that I'm already familiar with, but just in like a different form. So it's kind of like a supplement to it, but
Yeah.
like I wonder how it would stand alone on its own, and like, and I'm talking about just the movie musical, not the musical show itself, because it sounds like that's longer and more fleshed out and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if someone's first experience with Mean Girls was going to the AMC this week and watching this, having not seen the musical, not knowing the songs, and not knowing the Lindsay Lohan movie, like what would they think, and that kind of thing.
I think there would be
We
some
can't really
hard
discuss that,
thoughts.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
There would
we're
be.
too in the weeds.
Yeah. I'm deep in the bush. Like I'm in there. I do have to say, like, because Tina Fey was at the helm of the original movie, the musical, and the movie musical, I had faith in it regardless. Because I love Tina Fey. Like, I have my own critiques about her work, but if there's one thing about it, she will always follow through. Like, she knows how to craft a story. She knows how to write something. She knows how to take care of
Great
it.
writer, yeah.
Yeah, she's a great writer. She understands what it takes. And of course, because she works in Hollywood, she understands, like, the integrity that can be lost in remakes. And because Mean Girls is her magnum opus, she knows what it would be to create something new. And I think she does a good job of incorporating, like, Gen Z, social media, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, I want to talk about that too. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so we mentioned briefly talking about the '04 movie, things that may not
Mm-hmm.
have aged well, things that may have been more commonly heard in high schools in 2004 that are not so commonly heard in high schools in 2024. And
Mm-hmm.
like one of those is like the light homophobia
Yeah.
in the original movie, like Damon being too gay to function, which is like fun when Janice says it, but it's an insult when Regina says it. And
Mm-hmm.
like, is that still an insult? I don't really know. Like
Too gay to
the
function?
the the space for queer people in high schools, I feel like is way different now than it was when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. But like, and also like the fact the conflict between Regina and Janice that
Mm-hmm.
happened when they were in middle school. In the original movie, it's because Regina rudely accused Janice of being a lesbian and didn't invite her to a swim party for that reason, which is really messed up and
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And it was wrong then, wrong now. But like
Mm-hmm.
they excised that entirely and instead give her like this pyro plot instead. So like maybe it's just because I'm too in the bag with the original movie, but like the conflict between Janice and Regina felt a little bit clunkier than the original movie. But that's because they had to update it for modern times, I guess, because like that wouldn't play as well. The original conflict between Regina and Janice, they had to change it. I guess.
I
I
do
don't know.
think
What do you think about that?
um the conflict with Regina and Janice, I was thinking about it from the movie to the musical originally, and they keep the same thing in the musical, just about
Mm-hmm.
where,
I mean, she's a lesbian. I couldn't have her around girls in swimsuits like that. That
yeah.
was like a line in the original movie. Yeah.
And in the musical, basically, like, there's this, like, tiny little sequence where Regina goes up to Janice, she's like, I mean, are you? Are you? And Damien
Okay.
kind of says,
Okay.
like, as, like, he's talking to Katie, and this, like, a flashback almost. He's like, well, obviously Janice couldn't answer that because she's trying to take away her dignity with that question. It's
Mm-hmm.
not really a
Yeah. Yeah.
question. And so Janice
Yeah.
says, I'm a space alien and I have 4 butts. And then, of course, like, Regina tells all the people at school, and then Janice has to drop out of school for the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
year, and she doesn't come back until a little bit later. And that's how they did it in the musical. in the movie, I think they're trying to embrace the fact that Janice is queer. So
Hmm.
they changed the Regina and Janice like kind of like tension where I kind of liked how they did it where they're at a party and they did spin the bottle and Janice and Regina kiss and Janice
That part was good. Yeah.
yeah and Regina is like I only did it to impress the boy and she was like I mean she likes me, she's obsessed with me, she
Mm.
let me do it, like that just proves that like she's like a little wackadoo. And
Hmm.
I don't remember exactly what it was. What did Janice do? What did she set on fire?
She lit. I think she lit a plushie on fire via the Bunsen burner
Oh
in
yeah, yeah, yeah.
chemistry, and then it also lit Regina's backpack on fire. So
Mm-hmm.
like, she became like a crazy Leslie Pyro, I believe is the term they use, or something like that in
Mm-hmm.
the movie version. And so
Yeah,
she was an outcast for that. Which like, would you become an outcast for that? I'm not really sure.
yeah.
So
You
again,
would.
it just felt a little bit clunkier. Okay, you would. Okay, great. You're
I
you're
think.
the you're the authority more than me.
I think it does kind of make sense a little bit because um, a lot of people on TikTok have posed the idea that Regina is not straight. They posed the
Yeah.
idea that like Regina and Janice possibly were into each other, and
And
because
the
Regina,
casting of Renee Rapp may
mm-hmm.
may make that point more. Yeah.
And Renee Raff has said in interviews that like she has said like to her Regina is not straight, like she might be to
Mm.
you but to me she isn't, and I feel like she kind of plays into that a little bit in her acting, which I find funny at times, but I do think that in the movie they changed it because Janice's character is queer, like it's not even hinted at in the movie.
Yeah.
You don't really think it because like she ends up with Kevin Apor at the end, so it's like maybe she's not. But in the
Sure.
movie, like in the movie musical in 2024, it's like no, she is, and even like the actress herself says that, like Janice is queer, and she ends up with a
Hmm.
girl. She takes a girl to prom at that.
Yes.
So I think
Hmm.
the movie musical is more leaning into like Regina betrayed her friend's trust and also indirectly outed someone who was her friend, and that's why she's a bad person.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Janice also gets the big song "I'd Rather Be Me," which is kind of a not necessarily like a overt nod to her queerness, but like
Yeah,
probably a wink. You know, it's not hard to connect that dot,
yeah,
particularly when she's taking a woman to prom and a few scenes later. You know.
yeah. And also, like, for anybody who loves musicals, I do this all the time where I'm listening to a musical and I'm like, which one of these songs is an audition song? Like, which one of these songs is a song I'm singing in the shower? I'd Rather Be Me is the perfect mezzo soprano alto song. And let me tell you
All
something.
right. Yeah.
Barrett Wilbert Weed, I think that's her name. She played Janice in the musical version of Mean Girls, and she has also been on Broadway countless times. Like she's amazing on Broadway. She has sang that song on Jimmy Kimmel, on Jimmy Fallon,
Mm.
on Good Morning America. That song has been ran through. Okay, so
Okay.
listen, that song when Miss Moana started singing it, I was just like, look, y'all gotta do my girl justice. And the one thing about these musical numbers, they're all, I don't know if you agree with me, they're all kind of shot like music videos. You know what I mean?
They are, particularly the Renee Rapp numbers are like
Mm-hmm.
really shot like music videos.
Yep.
Well, so the Renee Rapp numbers are definitely feel like music videos, but the I'd rather be me. I'm sorry, what's it called?
I'd rather be
I'd rather
me.
be me.
Yeah.
I'd rather be me. Okay, that shot in like a long oneer, kind of. We're like kind of following her running through the
Like one
pulling a John Mayer and running
one
through the walls
shot.
halls of her high school. Yeah, done in one
Yeah.
shot. I think the sexy song I think is also maybe not quite in one shot, but it's shot in a similar style. Where we're like following her through the party kind of thing. So they're either trying to stage them as like long oneers or stage them as music videos. So
Yeah.
unless Angawi Rice is singing, where they just shoot it as boringly as possible, in my opinion, which is tough.
Before we get to her singing, I do want to say
Okay.
like
Okay.
sexy. I did love the musical number. I wasn't a huge fan of like the mixing for the music or the
Mm.
singing, but the
Hmm.
musical number itself was very impressive. And one thing I'll always give actors their props. So the girl who played I can never say her name right. So like the actress who played Karen, listen,
Avantika, I think.
yeah, she did that.
Incredible.
Yeah, she
She's
did that.
incredible. Honestly, yeah.
She was so adorable and so cute, and like I just want to say this: I would die for her. I would. Whatever her next project is, I'm watching it. I'm watching it. And I'm giving it 5 stars in Letterboxd simply because of that. Like, she's got a
I
fan
think
for
I
life
saw
now.
I think I saw a Letterboxd review that was highly praising the movie, but specifically called her out for I'm paraphrasing, dumb brown girl with big boobs representation, because this
Yes.
particular Letterboxd reviewer really felt seen by this character. So
Listen,
uh, yeah.
See, Mindy, you can write brown girls that are fun. Okay, we can have fun.
I thought, again, I may be mispronouncing her name, and if so, I apologize. Avantika, I think, plays Karen. She's amazing. Bebe Wood as Gretchen is also incredible.
Oh, she's
I
so
thought she was really good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, like I thought all three plastics, the actors who played all three plastics were like exceptional. Even as someone who is like holds the original dear and holds all those performances dear from the original, these three really stepped up and did a great job.
Yeah. And I do have to say, with I'd Rather Be Me, I love the way that they shot it, because the way it is in the musical, it's just kind of like Janice just standing on, it's a gym scene essentially. Like, she's standing on the platform.
It's a musical number. Yeah,
she's over the girls and she's just singing. And for the musical it works. But because it's a movie, they have the privilege to be like, you guys are singing, this is a musical number, we can make this a big musical number, we don't have to just have you guys standing and singing, like, we can have fun with this. And they fully do that with I'd Rather Be Me, and I love that the most, because Janice is such an expressive character, and Auli, I think that's how you say her name. She is such a talented actress, and also such a phenomenal singer. And I've been waiting.
Yes.
I've been waiting for her to do a movie musical. And like, the fact that it's Mean Girls is actually perfect, and her playing Janice is perfect as well. And when they went through the band room and she started singing, I was actually like, yeah, this is my shit right here. This is my shit. And when she runs between Renee Rapp and Caddy Harris, she's like, it's not about y'all, it's about me. This is my musical number. It's actually my moment. And I'm like, yeah, girl, that's right. Take the stage. Exactly. That's what I love. Like, that's what I loved about the musical numbers, because they're like, look, we're gonna have fun. There's gonna be confetti. There's gonna be dancing. We're gonna have a good time.
But to your point about her like literally pushing aside Katie Heron and Regina George, like that scene in the movie when Janice has like her big reveal, or Janice reveals what she and Katie have been doing to Regina, that like basically she just like reveals that, and then it becomes a dramatic scene between Katie and Regina. But like the musical movie version like stays on Janice pretty much that whole time, and like when Regina gets hit by the bus, like I think Janice is still singing, I think, or
yes, she
like
is.
It's such
she is.
It's like happening in the margins, like that. What's the main point of that scene in the movie is kind of just like happening off to the side in the musical version, which is funny to me.
Yeah, I do like it, because Janice, even though she like admits to like not being a good person, she did take Katie under her wing. She was nice to Katie. She gave Katie a chance, and she like let her like kind of into her inner circle and like treated her with respect. So for her to be betrayed by her friend twice, after she like opened up to her and she still like kind of disregarded her, she's just taking upon herself to be like, you know what? You're not really my friend. This is about me now. I'm going to choose me. And I will have to say, like, the song is also a good song. Like, I do have to say some things about like the writing of the lyrics, but like I'd Rather Be Me is a pretty solid song, and I love it a lot. And I feel like it's definitely going to be like a classic audition song. I can't think of it in any other way, but it's an audition song. Really.
How was the singing in the movie for you for that song in particular?
I'd Rather Be Me. Or just it was good. I mean, Miss Moana can sing overall.
She can, yes.
Yeah. I think that
I'm also not sure how to pronounce her name either, so I'm not trying to be disrespectful about calling her Miss Moana, but like that's what I'll identify her as. Yeah.
Yes, and I do have to say, like, I will say most of the singing in the movie musical was really good. I'm glad that Jaquel got singing parts, because he was on Broadway. So like, of course, let's utilize that.
He's won a Tony, I think. Yeah.
I do have to say, this is not meant to be mean. I just want to say that first of all, but a lot of times with movie musicals, they don't want to do the musical thing. In musicals, you have to sing with like a lot of breath. You have to belt things out. You are essentially kind of singing, screaming for the most part.
Yes.
Like, these girls had to hold notes like, like you have to hold a note and also look normal while holding the note, which is hard to
With the
do.
camera in your
And
face, hold it close
yeah,
up and hold a note. Yeah, that's tough.
yeah. And in musicals, you can just belt out and be loud, and your mouth can be wide as heck, and it doesn't matter. When you're doing a movie musical, you have to do the thing that Renee Rapp did in like her first introduce, like, "My name is Regina George." Like, she cannot open her mouth too wide because it
Yeah.
looks crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Renee Rapp has been on Broadway. The girl who played Karen, she's trained in acting. Jaquel has been on Broadway. Miss Moana, like, she's Miss Moana, duh. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's Miss Rice,
And
who
Gory Rice plays
Angora Rice.
Betty Heron. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I recognized her from the Spider-Man movies.
I figured you would.
So,
Yes.
so when I started to hear her sing, I was like, oh. I was like, of course
Oh.
she's singing. Of course she's singing. Like, the main character has to sing. That's the purpose. And in the musical, Katie sings the most.
I can imagine she's the main character. Yeah.
Yeah. In the movie musical, she doesn't sing as much.
Hmm.
Also,
Wonder where that is.
Also, because the mixing feels more like pop, it makes sense why they casted her, because she can sing, she can carry a tune, but her singing is obviously different from Renee Rapp singing, which I think is
Yes.
why they kind of like changed World Burn, because it's such a over dramatic theatrical number. Like, it's giving, like, Georgina George has had it. She made Katie, she brought her in, she took her under her wing, she showed you love. Like, I could have crushed you into dust, and I made you into the person you are, and you decide to you try to do me like this? So you know what? Actually, screw it. Everybody's gonna turn mean. Everybody's gonna be the bad guy. I'm not the only villain here. You feel like it's just me? You think I'm the only person here who is a bad person? No. Watch how quickly y'all are gonna turn when you realize that everybody you know and love doesn't have your back like they did have my back, okay? You think I'm the Ice Queen? You better watch how this city turns. Like, I'll burn this to the ground, okay? Like, how quickly World Burn turns into that. And on the musical, it's like, yes, girl. Set it off. Set it off. Because in the movie, she's throwing the papers. She's setting it off. She's spreading rumors literally. And the musical, she's like, I'm going to destroy you guys. And you will feel my anger.
Yeah.
And then in the movie, it's kind of like, drops the book, walks off. It's like, wait, hold on. Wait, come back, Renee. Wait, come back. What do you mean?
Yeah. I do like that in the 2004 movie, she like makes photocopies of everything in the burn book and like throws them. Like you said, she's literally spreading rumors. Like, it's a very physical action, and like seeing the papers like slowly fall down in the hallway is like a good image.
Mm-hmm.
And in the musical movie, she just drops the book and people like start taking pictures with their phones, and that's how
Yeah.
it spreads. And that's just it just didn't work as well for me. Like, I get the people with cell phones and everything and like whatever, but no. But to your point, yeah, Regina's saying we are all mean girls.
Yeah.
It's not me. I'm not the titular mean girl here. We all are. So
Yeah. And I was trying to make a point about the music, and I obviously went on a tangent about singing, but
I think
about
you're going to talk
Regina
about
George.
Angora Rice's singing.
Yes. It's very clear
Yes.
that they're going for like a pop sound for the movie musical, and that's fine. It feels very like Selena Gomez. It feels very Taylor Swift. Like, there's this kind of singing that people have where it's like, happy birthday to you. You can hear the singing,
You're not
you can hear
belting
the
it,
note.
yeah.
You're not belting, you're not singing out too loudly, but it's loud enough. It's like, smart with math, but stupid with, like, we get it, girl. But it's not the same thing where in the musical, she has to obviously belt out because it's like a musical, obviously, but she's not really like singing out. And it's weird to have like your leading lady have a different musical
Register.
set. Yeah, musical.
Yeah,
Different
yeah.
register than like the villain, and I don't expect them to match, but I feel like if you're casting for a movie musical, why would you have a cast full of people that are so musically talented, and then Miss Rice, who can just carry a tune, and who's supposed to be the leading lady, like.
You're being very kind, and I'll be less kind. This is the major flaw of the musical movie adaptation.
Mm.
It's just the casting of Angourie Rice, which like you've seen her in Spider-Man. I've seen her in The Nice Guys, which if you haven't seen The Nice Guys,
Oh, I love The Nice
freaking check out The Nice
Guys.
Guys. Incredible. She's Ryan Gosling's daughter in The Nice Guys. She's just like
Yes.
13, so she's a lot
Yeah.
younger. But um she's in a different movie in terms of her vocal capacity compared to
Yeah.
everyone else around her. And not only is she not singing in the same style, she's singing more in a breathier, like you said, like Selena Gomez, like a breathier, poppier, rather than Broadway belty kind of style.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like they changed the notes. They changed her notes. She's singing in like lower notes than the original broadcast recording. And as I alluded to TikToks earlier, there are people doing TikToks of like her songs from the movie, then directly followed by her songs from the musical, and like it just
Mm-hmm.
sounds a lot better. The notes are higher.
Mm-hmm.
The singer is singing in more of a Broadway style, which is what other people in the movie around her are doing as well, and she doesn't really fit in.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I suppose they're looking to cast a familiar face in the lead role. I guess I don't really know how but like, does Angourie
Familiar.
Rice qualify in that regard?
No.
Like,
No, she
you know,
doesn't.
like
They're looking for the
so.
girl next door.
I
That
guess.
that's the thing. That's the thing with the casting. They were focused on casting someone who looks like Caddy and already has acting
Mhm.
experience, and then the singing capability was second because
Mm.
once again they were not trying to market this as a musical, so there is not really a drive to find somebody who can like sing like that. And if they were to find somebody who can sing like Renee Rapp can sing, she probably wouldn't look like Caddy, or she wouldn't be like an actress with as many credits that Miss Rice does. Because like
Yes.
I just recognize her from Spider-Man, but even in Spider-Man she's barely in that movie, if we're
She's
being
like
honest.
the 10th build person in that movie. She's like
Yeah.
the 12th most important character in those movies. Yeah.
If we're really
She's a
like,
bit part.
when it comes to Spider-Man, some people even forget what like Peter Parker's friend looks like, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
So here's a question: why didn't they cast someone like Sabrina Carpenter, who had this role on Broadway, however briefly, and is currently a pretty big pop star? So
mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like from what I'm seeing, the reaction to this movie, the people who like it are
uh-huh.
just saying Renee Rapp's name over and over again. So like clearly a popular musical artist being cast in this movie is good for the movie. People are responding to that. So
Uh-huh.
I feel like they should have just done that for all the roles as opposed to put Angourie Rice in this lead role here.
Well,
I don't know.
Sabrina Carpenter is a talented singer, but I will have to say she's probably like two steps above like Selena Gomez singing. From the
Fair.
songs of hers that I've listened to, she is talented, but it's not like her singing style would have been that much different from Angourie Rice's. Also, Sabrina Carpenter looks too much like Renee Rapp. Like they're both blonde. They're both
That's
blonde.
not a that's not a bad thing though. I mean,
No,
like
but also Sabrina
given the
Carpenter is like 5'4".
so
Like,
how tall is Rachel McAdams? Like
well, they're all
the
kind
original
of the
Rachel
same
McAdams.
height. You need like actors that
Yeah.
are the same height almost. You know,
Hmm.
like Damien
Is
being
Renee
like
Rapp like
very.
5'9"?
I mean,
I have no idea how tall Renee Rapp
I
is.
don't think she's 5'9", but she does wear heels for the majority of the movie, so
Yeah.
that does help. And also like Sabrina Carpenter, I don't, I don't know if she would even have said yes to the role, for being honest.
Fair.
Yeah. I mean, I already have like a list of people that I would have rather cast as Katie, but these people are like people who have been on Broadway. So it would have been like new face, fresh face. And it does seem like right now with casting in Hollywood, they are more focused on casting people that are recognizable or people who can be recognizable in a certain sense rather than casting like unknowns.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what gets butts in seats is people who are going to see movies about people they're already familiar with.
Yeah.
That's what I just respond to.
And if they casted somebody who was Broadway trained, they wouldn't be able to trick people into thinking this wasn't a musical. Because the second you look up the cast and you figure out the leading lady was on Broadway, it's like, are they going to be singing?
Well, that's why Sabrina Carpenter would be so good because she's only on Broadway for 2 days as Katie Heron,
But
and
she's
then
an artist.
Yeah, I know.
The biggest news story about Sabrina Carpenter is that she dated Joshua Bassett, and she was the reason why Joshua Bassett and Olivia Rodrigo broke up. And then Olivia Rodrigo wrote Driver's License, and Sabrina Carpenter is the other girl, and Sabrina Carpenter wrote a whole album about, being called a slut online. So if they casted her as Katie, they would have definitely known she was singing. They would have definitely
I
known.
didn't know any of that, so thank you for bringing me up on the Gen Z pop star team. Really appreciate it.
Also, the audience for the film is Gen Z at that. They
I
know
know.
who Sabrina
I know.
Carpenter is. They know.
Which is why they would go see the movie. That's why they should have cast someone that, you know, the audience knows.
But once again, they're trying to play like, oh, this is a musical. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And Miss
Yeah.
Rice isn't like a singer, so you know.
I think Miss Rice also thought that it wasn't a musical when she showed up to to film it. Not to be disrespectful.
I do wish that they did cast someone else as Aaron, because
Yeah.
all my love
I was also pretty. I was unimpressed with this guy with respect to Christopher Brinley.
he was in a show. I think he's in the show "The Summer I Turned Pretty," which is based.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
My
it's a
wife watches
popular. It's a popular Amazon show, right? It's like
It
YA.
is, yes, based on books. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Which I think is why they cast him in it, because it's like, hey guys, guess what? That boy that you have a crush on in that show, he's in this movie, but this boy can't sing. You know.
Well,
like,
they didn't make him sing at all, so I guess that's, I don't know if he can't, but he didn't. That's for sure. I also thought that he and Angourie Rice, I didn't feel any kind of chemistry between them, like, at all.
Yeah.
And like I watched the '04 movie after I watched the 2024 movie, and like Jonathan Bennett and Lindsay Lohan, they got it. Like Jonathan Bennett's a little cutie, and he's very charismatic, and I did not get much charisma from this version of Aaron Samuels. Again, with respect.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And also, what was I gonna say? Chris Farley said in an interview, I might be misphrasing this, but he basically said he didn't have to sing for his audition, which is why he wanted to audition for this movie.
I see.
Like, he was scared he would have to. And then, like, everybody was so surprised, like, you didn't sing for your audition? Like, all these other people who are musically trained, like, what? Why did I have to bring 16 bars? Hello?
I had to prepare an audition song.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even do, I'd Rather Be Me. Because it's in the movie.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Is there any... I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would like to say in regards to Mean Girls the Musical.
I got a little bit more. Just a wee bit more.
Go ahead.
And this is mostly just me being a old man, get off my lawn, and complaining that this is different than the movie that I love, which is the '04 movie. So I realize these are stupid things to comment on, but I just gotta comment on them. The musical movie loses the anthropological aspect that I alluded to earlier, where like, again, we have narration where she's like almost talking about high school as if it's like a nature documentary, and we kind of lose that because there's no narration. The song Apex Predator is about that, but that's like kind of the only time in the movie that like, there's multiple times in the '04 movie where like there's something like a breakdown, the characters like act like animals, and like it's like a nature thing, and with the exception of Apex Predator, they mostly lose that. And I thought that was like a good conceit for the original movie, and like it being missing, I don't know, it still works, but I thought just like that was good, and they didn't carry that over.
I do love Apex Predator. I do like it a little bit more in the musical because they do it at the mall. The same
exactly.
way.
Yeah.
The same way
in the '04 movie, it's the mall. Yeah.
Yeah, in the musical, like it's Janice and Katie singing Apex Predator. It's not Janice and Damien. Because even though Janice and Damien kind of make sense, they're the narrators, it makes more sense for it to be Katie because she's in the Pride. Like, she is with the Queen Bee. Like, she is next to the Apex Predator. She is somehow safe, but she's wondering if she really is safe. And Janice is telling her that she's not. And that's another thing that you lose when you don't have a musically trained leading lady. Like, she can't sing alongside Miss Moana because she can't keep up.
So this next thing I think is probably a just result of them cutting out half an hour of the show that they're adapting. But in the '04 movie, we learn what fetch is when we first meet the plastics. Gretchen says fetch and explains what it means. And then she says fetch again one more time. And then she says fetch a third time at the Christmas show. And then Regina freaks out on her and says, stop trying to make fetch happen. Fetch isn't going to happen. In the 2024 musical movie version, she says fetch once and she explains what it is, and then doesn't say it again until the Christmas show, and Regina freaks out on her. And so it's like in the original movie, it's set up, reminder, payoff, and you lose the reminder in the musical movie version. And so like it kind of felt more out of nowhere that Regina's like freaking out about Gretchen saying fetch all the time when it's only the second time she said it. And that's a really small nitpick, but it's something that bothered me a little bit.
I
And
haven't noticed that.
and then the same thing for the term plastics. Like Damien calls them plastics when he first introduces all the clicks, and then we don't really hear the word plastics again until I think she's like breaking the crown in half at the end of the movie. Like the word plastics is all over the original Mean Girls, and again, it's just like not a term they use as much in the second in this new version. And so that kind of goes to my earlier point that I feel like the musical movie version is kind of just like a companion to the original movie and kind of like assumes you already know the original movie. And so I don't know. That's just something I noted.
I also want to say in the musical, there is a song called Meet the Plastics, where essentially, like, you go through each one. First it's Regina, then it's Gretchen, then it's Karen. And they only did Regina's verse from Meet the Plastics in the movie musical, which I feel like takes away from like really understanding and breaking down like who they are. Because I understand like we don't know who the Plastics are, obviously, but like still, like I want to hear the song. Like I want to hear some singing because obviously
it's only obvious we know who the Plastics are if we've seen the '04 movie.
Yeah,
like kind of what I'm saying. Like this musical assumes you've seen it and are familiar with it.
Yeah, it doesn't take the time to like really introduce the characters that are in the movie, and also I don't know what is Caddy's problem. She has a staring problem or something. Like, it must be because she's new. She keeps staring at people. When she started staring at Regina, I was like, so are we doing the gay thing in this movie or not? Because I'm okay with that. And then she's staring at Aaron. I'm like, girl, stop looking at people. I know you're new here, but dang.
Yeah.
Get some decorum.
I guess the last thing I'll say before we move on from this movie is I read that this was actually supposed to go straight to Paramount Plus. It was not originally going to be theatrically released. And it was only in September of this past year that they decided to move it to theaters after, according to Paramount, after, quote, positive test scores. But my suspicion is because of the strikes. And they had, their slate was thin because they weren't producing anything for like 4 months. So they're like, oh, well, we got Mean Girls over here. Let's throw this in theaters rather than on the streaming service. So, which, I mean, it turns out to be a good move because they were number one at the box office last weekend, at least. I don't know about this current weekend, but
I do want to say that is a smarter move because I feel like more making movies that go straight to streaming is fine, but there are still some movies that I would rather see in theaters. You know, like Rebel Moon was a movie that went straight to Netflix. And me personally, I'm not a huge Zack Snyder fan, but if y'all release it in theaters, I would force myself to go because if I'll spend the $20. I'll go to Regal Cinema. I'll watch the movie. You want me to watch this at home? Absolutely not. Like, I will see it on the big screen.
Most movies I'd rather see in theaters, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I was given the choice between watching at home and watching in theater, 99 times out of 100, I'm going to the theater. So I appreciate that movies are more accessible by putting them on streaming services, but I prefer if they had a theatrical window and then with streaming services personally. Yeah.
And I think that Mean Girls, the movie musical, is a movie that should be experienced with other people. I do believe that. Yeah. So it's smart that they decided to push for the theatrical release. I think that in the long run will benefit them a lot more. There is one thing I did want to say. I feel like they did have it in mind from, I don't know from what point, that they weren't going to let people know this is a musical, even though this is very clearly being adapted from the musical adaptation of the movie. They weren't going to let people know. And one thing that like kind of hinted this to me, I can't find the TikTok video, but there was at one point when the movie just came out and everyone was talking about it. There was a girl who was a dancer in the movie. And if you guys remember Revenge Party, I think it's one of the first people, like one of the first sequences when they do like the big breakdown where it's like, and the energy dips, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then after like Miss Rice does that terrible shot of her right in the face and like she goes to get the candy canes, and then like they do the candy cane scene, and they go back to like it's a revenge party, and they do the dance breakdown. At that first dance breakdown, that first girl you see, I think that it was her. She made this TikTok. She basically said that a lot of the dancers were not invited to the premiere, and a lot of them only just got like gift bags and stuff. But because it's a musical and there's so much dancing, like that's one thing that really elevated this movie was the dancing, like the dance breaks, really, and like the sequences for these songs. Like for you to not invite your dancers to the movie premiere is, I feel like that is, disingenuous.
Tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know you can't invite everybody to the movie premiere, but like y'all invite
Dances are important, man.
Like y'all invite a lot of these influencers to this movie premiere, and I don't even know why they're there, if I'm being honest. So the people that you pay to make your movie better, you could have invited them there. Like,
question, last thing. Is the thing that Damien does, the talent show in the movie, also in the stage version? Where he sings the iCarly theme song in French?
I don't think so.
That was really funny. I thought that was an extremely funny thing. So I'm glad they did that. So
I actually liked that.
The movie. Yeah.
When he was singing, I was reading the lyrics. I was like, "This is familiar. Where do I know this from? I feel like I know this song." And he said the iCarly scene. I was like, that's actually perfect. And I also want to say, like, in the musical where Regina's like kind of like, I guess, gaining weight, they gave her butt pads. So like there's a whole scene in the musical where like Regina comes out and she's just like in her Santa top, and you see like the obvious butt pads, and it's like, oh girl, we see where the Celtic bar is going. And she fully like I don't know, does a dip or something, and her skirt flies off and her ass is just out, and she just runs off the stage. And that's what you see in the musical. And I feel like in the movie it's like a little bit different. Obviously they didn't go that route. It was just like, that's fine, it's whatever. And I think it's because Renee Rapp is just kind of curvier than Rachel McAdams. So it's just kind of like, hey.
But also like in 2004, skinny was still very in for young women, and like that's kind of maybe evolved a little bit since then. So just a little different environment.
Let me see. I want to see if there's any last thing I want to say about the movie musical. Definitely, I already said this before, but I'll say it again. Somebody Gets Hurt and Revenge Party were my favorite musical numbers. I did love it. I also love that at the end of the movie musical, they show like behind the scenes of the prom scene. Yeah. I like that. I want more movies to do that. I want more like, please put the behind the scenes during the credits. That way people will sit and watch the credits. Because that's what I do. I always watch credits. Because like after I watch a movie, I just need to sit down. I just need to take a break because I have a headache. I can't get up right now. Do
you watch the entire credits, or is there a point in the credits where you get up and leave?
No, I watch the entire credits.
Good for you.
Because one thing I gotta do, I gotta Google everything that just happened. Like when I went to see The Boy and the Heron, I was like, I need to know what the frick is happening in this movie. What just happened?
That's a good movie. I like that one. I usually stay until I see the unit production manager. So I stay for like the cast, I stay for the department heads, but once we get to the unit production manager, then I'll usually hop out and go find my car.
Yeah. And I also want to say, I already said this already, I'll just reiterate, people not liking musicals is not new. People don't like, there are some people who don't like musicals, and there are some people who think they don't like musicals. You just haven't found your musical.
That's right.
Okay? And I honestly believe that more people would like musicals if musicals were more accessible. And if y'all didn't talk down about them, because there are some good musicals out there. There are fun ones, there are sad ones, there are scary ones, there are sexy ones. There are a lot of them out there. Okay? I just want them to be.
Do you have a sexy musical you want to recommend for people, for listeners?
Sexy musical I would recommend is Six. I think that's a little sexy. And there's one that's like not sexy, but it's like dastardly sexy. It's called Assassins. This is why I want musicals to be accessible. Like, there's literally a streaming service called Broadway HQ, and they put all these very old pro shots of musicals that nobody cares about on there. It's like, girl, if you release every pro shot of every musical that's been out on Broadway in the past 20 years, the money you would make. The money! Oh my gosh.
Audiences out there.
Listen.
Need to be fed.
You have it. You have the audience. You have the archives. Y'all are just being elitists. Okay. That's all I'm gonna say. Almost every other
Okay.
podcast I do, if we get into talking about like accessibility or musicals, I'll bring up the fact that like musicals should be accessible. Like they should be accessible to everybody.
I haven't listened to that many episodes of this podcast, but I have heard you say that on the episodes. I've listened to. So yes, I can attest that that is true. Yes.
Listen, I'll beat that horse into the ground. Okay, that horse is dead. It's dying, and I'll still be whipping it. I'll be
You should
kicking
add
it.
it to the outline. Every episode should have that in the outline of make space for Monica to rant about the accessibility of musicals.
Every single week, new topic, new guest, new rant about me talking about how musicals should be accessible.
Perfect.
Yeah. Do you have any last thoughts on Mean Girls overall?
Overall thoughts on Mean Girls? Just the Mean Girls of it all. Let me go through my notes.
Oh, I do want to say, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I really did like the actress who played Karen. Not Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Gretchen. I actually did like her, but I feel like Gretchen should have been black. Because they kept in the line, her hair is so big. That's why her hair is so big. It's full of secrets. Her hair was not big at all.
Bebe Wood's hair is very flat with respect to Bebe Wood. Yes. Yeah.
So maybe, like, because also there was a actress, Ashley De La Rosa, who played the understudy for Regina George on Broadway. I feel like y'all could easily just cast her as Karen. Like, it's easy enough. And also like casting agents like to do this thing where it's like, we do a trio and we have one diverse friend, and maybe there are two, but one of them you can't tell if they're not white, but they are, but you can't tell, so maybe I'm asking for too much.
Would that line still play, her hair is so big because it's full of secrets, if it was a black woman?
I mean, yeah, it could have been just her natural hair. That's what I'm saying.
That's true.
Yeah, and also Gretchen is like, just has like curly hair, and I was like, her hair is big. Y'all are right. Yeah, it's full of secrets.
Yeah.
It works.
Lacey Chabert's hair isn't that big either, though, in the original movie. It's not actually that big either one, but it's bigger than Bebe Wood's.
Yeah.
You had something on the outline about the different mediums of like stage and screen stuff, and I was thinking about that. I was watching the original. There's a 4-way phone call scene in the original movie that's very famous. That you can't really do something like that on stage, but I love it so much. And like, what's funny is, so the 4-way phone call is Gretchen. It's three plastics plus Katie, right? And it's like Regina talking to Karen, and then Karen also talking to Gretchen, right? And half of that scene, it's just Regina George and Katie are just staring off into space because they're not talking to anybody. They're literally on hold, but it still works. Like, even though I don't know, I love that 4-way phone call scene. That's something I guess you can only do in the movie, but I'm glad they did it.
Every time I rewatch it, I watch their faces, because when I first watched the movie, I was like, wait, can they hear each other? So now every time I rewatch it, I watch like Katie's face when Gretchen's talking, and I watch Regina's face when like Karen is talking, because I'm trying to see like, how did they hear each other? You know what I mean? That's also, I agree with you. Like, 4-way phone calls are kind of a thing of the past.
Oh yeah. I mean, they were almost outdated in 2004 by that point, but
yeah.
It's but that scene also that gives us "boo you whore," which was a very commonly said thing when I was in high school. Sarcastically and lovingly, it was said, but
I didn't understand it when I first watched that. I was like, "What do you mean? Why are you calling her that? That's your friend." Mean Girls exposed me to so much when I was young. I was like,
as Miss Norberry says, you guys gotta stop calling each other bitches and whores.
For
that just
real?
gives permission for the boys to call you bitches and whores.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Come on, Miss Norberry, let them know, okay?
Well, they hadn't heard that yet by that point in the movie. They were still naive. So.
Yeah, that's true. Also, in 2004, it was just kind of like the rise of technology, where they were just getting like flip phones and stuff. And now, like in 2024, technology has advanced so much. It's so interesting to see like how TikTok was incorporated in the show, in the movie musical.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah,
I liked it because it does make sense. Because I spend too much time on TikTok, but every so often there'll be some story, out of like some small town in Oklahoma, Montana, whatever, about a girl who found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her, and it was with her best friend, and her best friend has a baby, and she told the best friend about the baby, and the best friend doesn't care, so she's exposing her boyfriend on TikTok, and now everybody in the comments are commenting, and she's like, comment where you're from also, so my boyfriend knows I have worldwide reach. And it's like, I'm from Germany, and I'm telling you right now, girl, leave him, burn his car, okay, trash his clothes. It's like that. I see that on TikTok all the time. So for Caddy and Regina's feud to be like a conversation on
to
TikTok,
reach Megan the Stallion.
yeah, it's not unheard of. And
remember Couch Boy on TikTok?
Couch Boy?
Do you remember Couch Boy? Never mind. Look up Couch Boy later. It's that's like old TikTok. That's like 4 years ago TikTok. Sorry.
I'm looking that up as soon as we're done with this recording.
Okay.
I also have to say, like, I was so extra when I watched this in the theaters. When Megan Thee Stallion got a screen, I was like, I was so extra. I was like, oh my God. I was like, y'all are lying. Because, you know, whenever
she's in it more than once, too.
She's in it more than once.
I mean, probably for a grand total of 10 seconds, but she's still in it like multiple times.
Listen, it's funny to me because, like, whenever they do, like, a song for a movie as part of the soundtrack, you know that song's going to be playing at the end credits, so it's like, you're not going to interact with it. And then Black Regina George is in the movie. It's like, damn, they really did that for me. They really did
just
that.
For you.
Yeah.
As a personal favor. Real quick, so do you think the... I was trying to think of, like, my overall thoughts on Mean Girls. I would say that the 2004... I'm in the bag for 2004, and I appreciate the kids discovering 2024. I'm glad they have their version. That's great. But, like, speaking of for the 2004 version, you mentioned Clueless. Yeah. I think that Mean Girls is in, like, a lineage of things like Clueless, things like Easy A, things like Lady Bird, you know, high school movies that focus on young women, which I think is great. And I also think that Mean Girls might be, like, this is for the older people who care about this kind of stuff, but this is maybe like the definitive high school comedy of the 2000s.
Yeah. And
I was trying to think of what its competition would have been, and its competition is stuff like Superbad, which I love, but I think is a little bit different. Juno, Napoleon Dynamite, and Bring It On. And I think Mean Girls is like head and shoulders the definitive high school movie of the 2000s, if that's competition. So
it's funny because Bring It On is also another movie that turned into a musical, and I have to say the musical is hot. The musical is hot. You bringing in flips and singing?
All right.
Oh, listen, okay, we might as well. We might as well.
There must be some toros in the atmosphere. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's undeniable.
That's a good movie.
It's a great movie. It's a phenomenal movie.
Great movie. Yeah. Excuse me, I misspoke. It's a great movie. Yeah.
It's so funny because, like, every so often people ask, like, Gabrielle Union, like, where's the reboot? It's like, y'all, she's busy. She has children. You can't leave that lady alone, okay? There are 4 of those movies. She was not the only person in the movies, okay?
She was in the good one, though. I think the rest of them were, like, straight to video situations.
Wasn't there one where it was Hayden Panettiere and Solange?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not really up on the Bring It On sequels, to be honest. So
I think the Hayden Panettiere one was the first one.
Kirsten Dunst was in the first one. I don't think Hayden Panettiere is in the first one.
Oh.
First of all, she was like 10 years old when the first one came out, so I don't think she was in it. Yeah.
You know what? You might be right.
Actually, Hayden Panettiere was the little girl in Remember the Titans, which I believe came out the same year as Bring It On, so she definitely was not the right age to be in Bring It On.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. She's Cheryl Yost, the great Cheryl Yost.
I completely forgot she's in Remember the Titans.
She is. She's a little baby.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, she's like 9 or 10. She's not like a baby, but you know,
no.
A little baby.
She's a child.
Yes.
I don't know if there's anything else I would say, but I will have to say Tim Meadows has aged pretty well. I have to say, like, seeing him in the movie musical, I was like, oh, look at that. I was like, it makes sense that he still works there.
Yeah.
He's like
him and Miss Norbury are married now.
Yeah, they're together.
They were co-workers in the original movie.
Yes. Yeah. And now when he said that he's retiring at the end of summer, I was like, you deserve that. Because ain't no way that happened to you twice. Ain't no way.
Well, I think he says in the original movie that I'm retiring after this year too, and then he. Wait, no, he doesn't. Never mind. My
No.
bad. Okay.
He's like, I cannot wait for spring break.
Oh,
I
yeah, I'm
cannot wait for
glad
the
the
summer
school
break.
year's over. That's what he says. Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. Yeah.
He's like, I can't wait to never not see y'all for another 2-3 months.
Yeah.
Oh, I also want to say like, there are a couple things in the new movie that kind of got on my nerves. Like Golf Bird as a pet name, I kind of hated. And then
I don't love that. Yeah.
no, and then when Karen said, oh no, was it Karen? It was Gretchen. Gretchen was like, oh, you can't join mathletes. That's socially ruinous. It's like
Why? Why that change?
socially ruinous. Like, girl, please say anything else. Like, you don't have to say social suicide, but you can say something different. Like, you could just say like, oh, girl, you can't join mathletes. Are you dumb?
You
like,
can't say social suicide. Is that not allowed anymore? You think?
Cause like it sounds like
For mental health awareness.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
They say it multiple times in the original movie.
They do.
It's said twice. Yeah.
But I feel like they could have said anything else.
They were trying to split the difference, I guess, by like being close to the original line, but also changing it. And maybe they should have just like changed it more, and maybe just not been so beholden to the original line, possibly, if they're trying to avoid that.
I think that they still kept the line social suicide in the musical, just because like it's a musical, things are over dramatic, so of course you're gonna keep that in there.
But like that's kind of what I meant when I said the movie's kind of sanded down. The edges are sanded down.
Yes.
Like it's okay if people say mean things, particularly in a movie called Mean Girls. Like these characters aren't supposed to be like that nice. They are kind of supposed to be like a little barbed and like not the kind of people that you want to encounter. And so like, I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know.
I do want to say, some people are saying that Regina wasn't mean in the new Mean Girls. She's still kind of mean. Like, she straight up called out Karen for like sleeping with 11 people, and I was like, that's a little harsh. Like, how do you know she's slept with that many people? Yeah, she's definitely still me. She's still got that bite to her, and I think that from what you said, how the new movie is sanded down, because it was originally meant for streaming, it could be that like Paramount studio execs stepped in and they're like, hey, some of the things you guys say in this movie, maybe we could just like cut that out a little bit.
That's
maybe
possible.
Like, yeah. Also, like family audiences, you know.
Yeah. I think that I forgot one thing. So one thing that the new movie adds that was not in the original was so in the original movie, as we talked about before, there's like a fight between Katie and Regina, and then Regina gets hit by a bus. In the original movie, we don't hear from Regina again. I'm not sure she has another line of dialogue after that. Like, she's kind of out of the movie after that. And in the new version, at Spring Fling, Regina and Katie get like a bit of a reconciliation in the bathroom at Spring Fling, which I thought was nice for a couple of reasons. Number one, it has maybe the funniest line in the movie about, you know, they would call me if I was a boy. I just thought that was a really, really, that's a joke straight out of 30 Rock. I thought that was a great joke. And number two, it does like give Katie and Regina that chance to like reconcile. And that's not really something I ever thought was like missing from the original movie, because in the original movie, the very last scene, like Regina walks by Katie and they kind of like make eye contact and like nod at each other. And that's like, just that single nod is enough of reconciliation. Like that gives that's enough that, you know, conveys what this conversation scene conveys. But like, I thought it was nice that they had like an extra scene with the two of them.
Yeah. It was a nice little reconciliation, because Regina's literally like, I mean, these drugs make you like everybody, so don't take it to heart. And I was like, girl, that is so funny. Yeah. But I also love the part where like she breaks the crown and she tosses it to the girls. When she tosses it to Regina, she tosses it and Regina's like, oh!
Complete misses, yeah.
Fully just like, okay, yeah. Okay.
That was good.
Overall, I think that we can both agree that even though the new movie has like its perks and, you know, there are positive things about it, the original still stands, you know, as like,
I am reinvigorated in my love for the original. Having watched the new version.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be a hater, because I know people like this, but I'm not sure this is for me. But it, like, literally, like, this is for people younger than me. Like, you know, I have my version, so you guys have, you know, the kids have this version too. So
yeah. And even the cast said like they did the movie to have fun, and they like did a lot of nods to the original.
They're having fun.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
know that like they're not gonna top the original because it's the
Yeah.
original. And Renee Rapp has said multiple times she loves the original. She loves Rachel McAdams. She calls her mommy like in every interview she gets a chance. So
And people love Renee Rapp. I was
they
kind of
do.
scrolling through Letterboxd. I was scrolling
Yeah,
through Letterboxd, and I don't think there's a single review that's 4 stars or higher that does not mention Renee Rapp like several times. And that's
literally.
like she's kind of like the thing
Mm-hmm.
that people are responding to in this movie, at least in that crowd, Letterboxd crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
yeah,
all my love, and I will have to say, even though I do love the original movie, I think I feel like it's one of the most original movies ever made. Just for like the chick flick genre, it's so good.
sure.
It's so like real, but I do have to say I love the musical, just because I'm a musical theater nerd, and I feel like the musical really does elevate the story, and it does give you a little bit more context. And the
Yeah.
music in the musical is actually pretty good. Some of the lyrics, we could change some things, but like other than that, like I always have something to say about musicals because I'm just like, like there's always
Yeah,
something to
it's
nitpick.
got a segment on every podcast is Monica ranting about musicals and their accessibility. Yeah.
Okay. There's always like something to nitpick, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, guys, I hope you enjoyed our conversation about like Mean Girls the musical, Mean Girls the movie musical, and unraveling the turducken of the adaptation that Mean Girls has become, how it is now solidified in like pop culture, the lexicon of what an iconic film this is. And we're just gonna wrap up the podcast with some recommendations that we have for you guys. I only have one recommendation, I think, and it's this Apple TV show called Criminal Record, starring Peter Capaldi. And essentially, it's about this woman. She's a detective, and she gets this call one night from a young girl who's being attacked by her boyfriend. And the boyfriend brags about a murder that he committed. But when she looks up the murder, there's someone already in jail for it. And when she's trying to dig into why is this man in jail? How did this happen? What happened with the case? She is met with the very like brash hand of Mr. Haggerty, who is a very old cop. This is also a British crime show. And he is very much like old cop. He's been there for a long time. He knows everybody in the system. Everybody knows him. He's got friends. He's got power. He's got pull. And the fact that she's looking into one of his old cases is not sitting right with him. And the first 3 episodes are on Apple TV right now. And I started watching it and I thought like, oh, this is a full season, right? No, I have to wait until next Wednesday for the next episode. So you know what? Y'all let me know when it's done so I can binge it because content has broken my brain. I can't watch things weekly. Okay, I'll forget what's going on. I have to watch it in one sitting so I remember what the heck is going on here. But the show is very, very good. If you like British crime dramas, if you like things about wrongful convictions, if you like mysteries, if you like things that are very intense, I suggest that you watch this show because it's very, very good. I loved it.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you've watched recently that you want to recommend to the people?
I didn't prepare anything, but now that you're asking me on the spot, I can say that I recently watched Anatomy of a Fall, which is a movie that
Oh.
came out last year from France, and it's partially in France, but a lot of it's in English,
Mm.
and it is almost certainly going to be nominated for Best Picture. At the it may already be nominated as you're listening to this, but it's really good,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about a woman whose husband dies by falling out the second floor window of their house, fell or was pushed, and she gets charged with his murder, and so and a lot of the movie is just like the trial, and
Mm.
we as the audience are never really sure what happened. We're not sure if he killed himself or if he fell on accident or again if she pushed him, and it's extremely compelling and like pretty intense and just like really really compelling stuff.
Come
It's
on,
really good.
unreliable narrator. Come on.
And I oh like the movie shows the guy falling multiple times, but it shows it different every time. It shows a sequence where like he falls on purpose. It shows a sequence where she hits him with something and he falls. So like the movie is not committing to any one truth, and it really is about different versions of the truth and the unknowability. And like it's frustrating at times because we don't really get like a firm answer of what actually happens, but it's so compelling. It's a very good movie. Sandra Hüller might get nominated for Best Actress. I hope she does, but if you're looking for something good that came out late last year, Anatomy of a Fall is excellent.
Okay. That is on my watch list. I have been meaning to watch that. So
I haven't even watched that. Hell yeah.
I haven't. So I will be checking that out because it is one of the movies that people have been bringing up in regards to award season, of course. And it's, I don't know, there are a lot of foreign films actually that have been brought up this year for award season. It's very different from 2017 when it was like just Parasite that everyone was talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zone of Interest is another big one. That one's a tougher sit. Like I recommend it, but like I recommend that differently than I recommend Anatomy of a Fall because it's a tougher sit. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us what Zone of Interest is about?
I can't tell you what Zone of Interest is about. It is about a Nazi family that lives next door to Auschwitz, and so it's the phrase banality of evil is talked a lot about in regard to Nazi Germany. And I'm sorry, just give me 30 seconds here and I'll land this point. So the movie is like very intentionally kind of boring and kind of like, it's just like this family's life in this house. And it seems very normal and like, and the audience has the context that this guy's leaving his house every day and going next door to perpetrate some of the worst crimes in the history of humanity, but he's just like coming home and having dinner with his family after that. And like the movie stays pretty much in the house or at least in their yard the entire movie. The movie never goes into the camp next door, but like you can see like smoke from the chimneys and you can hear trains, and like there are like really harrowing scenes where the wife is just like putting on lipstick in her mirror, and like if you listen closely you can hear like screams off in the distance.
Oh my god.
So it's like it's that kind of thing. It's it's very intense but also like very banal and like kind of boring by design, but also like kind of harrowing in a different way because you know what's happening just outside the frame. So it's like it's kind of like an art movie, you know. That's why I like kind of hesitate to recommend it to everybody, but that's what it is. And if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, it's an incredible movie, but it's just not something I'd recommend for everybody. But actually, Sandra Hüller, the lead actress in Anatomy of a Fall, is also in Zone of Interest. She's in both of them. She's the wife in Zone of Interest. Yeah, because I think she's from Germany originally, and she speaks German in Zone of Interest. And then in Anatomy of a Fall, she speaks English and French. And it's actually like a plot point that neither one of those are her native tongue in Anatomy of a Fall, so she has to like defend herself in a murder trial in a language that isn't her original language, and that's again kind of a plot point in that movie. So Sandra Hüller is amazing, so you can check her out in either one, Zone of Interest or Anatomy of the Fall.
Wow. I'm going to be honest with you. I learned about Anatomy of the Fall because people were making fan edits of the lawyer, and I was like, who is this guy?
Wait, the lawyer who wears red or the lawyer who wears black?
The lawyer with the gray hair who like just running his
okay, yeah, he's got the swoopy hair. Yeah. He's the defense attorney, and he serves. He serves in the movie.
Oh my gosh.
The prosecutor is bald and has like a red robe, but also that's another thing is like French courts apparently work a lot different than United States courts, and it's like fascinating the differences because like apparently you can like anyone can talk at any time, I guess, because like they're constantly talking to both the witness and the defendant simultaneously. The defendant is talking to the witness, and like in U.S. courts, there's like very strict rules of like you know only the person on the stand, and you can't address the jury, and like the defendant has to stay quiet. That kind of, not the case in French court. So like it was kind of interesting to like watch this as an American who's not used to watching French court dramas because it was cool. It was good. Big recommend.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, now I have to watch Anatomy of the Fall. Okay. You know what, guys? I want to thank Josh for coming on the pod. Thank you so much for talking about Mean Girls with me. This was a wonderful time. Thank you for listening to me talk about Mean Girls the musical, because believe it or not, I have been waiting to talk about this musical with somebody. Okay? And let me say
thank you for having me on. Yeah.
It was a joy.
Sorry I don't have the musical knowledge that you have, but I hope I move the conversation along best I could.
Listen, you don't have to have the musical knowledge I have because, like, the musical knowledge I have is absolutely ridiculous. It's the reason why I can't learn anything new because there are useless musical facts in here, and there are lyrics in here that I can't get rid of. Like I can't learn anything different. I can't learn a new language because I spent so much of my adolescence learning about musicals. So it's
Fair.
fine. It's fine. And it was a joy to have you on. I would love to have you on again. You know, it was great. Guys, don't forget to check out Josh's podcast, Serious Film People. It's Serious Film People, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
correct. Thank you.
Check it out. You can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out their TikTok. Go ahead and follow them. Show them a lot of love. And guys, don't forget to follow us on all of our socials. Check us out on Patreon. And just a reminder, the video version of this podcast will be out Monday afternoon on YouTube, but you can get early access to it on our Patreon. The audio version, of course, is out every Saturday morning. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and listen to us wherever you find podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends and family about your favorite new podcasts. I've been meaning to watch that. And we see you guys next week. New topic, new guest. Bye.